So, in the year 2045, Earth was basically a war zone. People were fighting giant monsters everywhere. It was super scary, and the soldiers were getting wrecked left and right. There was fire, chaos, and lots of yelling. Then, one huge monster with crazy red eyes showed up. This thing was massive. Its sharp tentacle aimed right at one soldier, and the poor dude just froze in fear. But then, out of nowhere, a man jumped in and sliced the tentacle. That was some insane timing. The monster howled like it just stubbed its toe, but way worse. The hero dude wore a military cap, and he wasn't having any of this monster nonsense. He started attacking like a total boss, cutting off the monster's limbs with his sword. The monster tried to hit back, but this guy dodged and whipped out a gun. Bam! He shot at the monster, and soon, the beast was down. Fuck yeah, that was super easy. After the fight, the man told the scared soldier to get up. This hero was Han Sung, the commander-in-chief of Earth's last defense squad. Humanity had been fighting monsters for decades. Those fucked things randomly spawned on Earth and thus began to destroy it, and there were almost no soldiers left. Thank God, after countless battles, those monsters almost gone. And now his last target was in front of him. After all, maybe he could declare Earth to be free again. But just then, zap! A golden magic circle appeared under him. He then vanished in a flash of light. Bro, his gun was just left behind on the battlefield. The soldier he saved started freaking out, calling for his commander. Well, our boy woke up somewhere pitch black, and he was chained up with glowing ropes. A bunch of creepy people in robes stood around him, looking shocked that their spell worked. Han Sung was confused and angry, wondering where he was. An old man in robes welcomed him and asked him to kill the Demon King and save their country. What bullshit is this? Of course, our boy was not happy. He yelled at them, wanting to know who they were and to shut up. The old man just waved his hand, and the glowing chains squeezed Han Sung, making him scream in pain. It hurt like hell. The old guy told him to chill out and said he'd be fine if he did what they wanted. He asked Han Sung again to defeat the Demon King, and even promised that if he helped, maybe they could send him home. With a scary look, he asked if Han Sung would accept. Han Sung, stuck in those magic chains and hurting, realized he had no choice. He agreed, but he was pissed, as he should be, duh. Just like that, our protagonist was dragged into a new world as the otherworldly hero of this empire. His new life sucked even more. For 10 years, he trained every day, fighting monsters and doing whatever the empire wanted. It never stopped. Finally, he defeated the big bad Demon King, Valror, after a whole decade. Han Sung dreamed every night about going home. He thought he was finally free. But nope, the old bastard came back with bad news. There was another job. Some rebels still fought against the empire, and Han Sung had to take them out. The new target was a guy named Badel. The old man promised that if Han Sung finished this mission, he would finally be free. As the painful magic chains burned him again, our boy got angry. He thought that a dog with a collar couldn't choose anything. He cursed these guys for making him their slave, and got ready for another fight. Then, the scene switched to a place called Teutonia Night Kingdom. Han Sung was hunting down Badel there. They fought hard, but in the end, our MC defeated him. As Badel lay dying, he called Han Sung a fool for listening to the Empire. Han Sung, feeling sad and guilty, said he had no choice. Badel, all bloody but still kind of cool, told our boy not to say sorry. He warned him that the Empire would dump him soon too. After the mission ended, Han Sung thought it was finally over. He could go home, right? Nah. Suddenly, a bastard named Count Brandenburg showed up and stabbed Han Sung from behind. Ouch, dude. That bastard acted all cold and congratulated our boy on being the most loyal hunting dog. Han Sung, shocked and gasping, realized he had been betrayed. Brandenburg laughed and said the hero was just the most foolish man in this empire. He twisted the sword in Han Sung's chest, saying a hunting dog only knows how to bite. He then said goodbye as Han Sung fell down, dying. This bastard, I want to skip to the chapter where he died. Anyway, as Han Sung lay there, he was mad. He cursed the empire and swore he would never forget what they did to him. With his last breath, he promised to destroy all of them. Then, a bright blue light exploded from his chest. That night, Han Sung's old life ended, and a new one started. Suddenly, he woke up as a baby. A beautiful woman was holding him, saying she was his mom. Behind her was a man with long black hair. Bro, I knew our boy was gonna be super rich now. Han Sung somehow felt like he knew this guy. Then he realized it was Duke Saxon, the best necromancer ever. Now he understood he had been reborn in Necropolis, a place full of forbidden magic ruled by the Empire. He smiled. Thank God the Stone of Reincarnation had worked. That Stone of Reincarnation was a super dangerous artifact, and he only used it because he was desperate to escape. He didn't know what kind of body he would get, but wow, he got lucky. Now he was the first son of the Saxon family, one of the most powerful noble houses in the Empire. Our protagonist thought he was basically born with a golden spoon in his mouth. He felt more determined than ever to get revenge. He decided that when he grew up and learned necromancy, he would destroy everyone who betrayed him, especially that bald fucking bastard, His smug face even make me want to punch him until he begs for mercy. But his new parents noticed something weird. Their baby, Han Sung, wasn't crying at all. The Duchess holding him looked worried and asked the nanny why. The nanny said it was strange, but at least he was breathing fine. Duke Saxon said a baby who doesn't cry could be bad luck, yet the nanny said not to worry. Then she suggested they could just smack his butt to make him cry. Without waiting, the nanny slapped baby Han Sung's bottom. Han Sung got mad, but he still refused to cry. Who the hell would a grown man want to cry? His parents watched, kind of entertained, and the Duchess joked that maybe he had the Duke's strong will. Then the Duchess took the baby herself and said she would try. Instead of slapping, she just gently patted him. That soft, warm touch hit our boy right in the heart. All the memories of his hard life came back. He thought about how long it had been since someone touched him with real love. The warm hand of his mother made him feel something he hadn't felt in years. Pure, honest love. That was just too much. Han Sung, who hadn't cried since he was a little kid, couldn't hold it in anymore. He finally started bawling like a real baby. His new parents stared in surprise. But honestly, who could blame the guy? He had just lived a sad 2 lifetimes, bro. Anyway, 8 years had gone by since Han Sung was reborn. His new parents, Duke Alan Saxon and the Duchess Elena, started feeling like time was moving way too fast. The Duchess talked about how Dale, Han Sung's new name, had been glued to his book since he was just 4. Okay, dude, because our protagonist's name was Dale now, let's call him Dale from now on. Back to the story, the Duke looked proud, and she teased him, saying maybe Dale got his bookworm brain from his dad. The Duke agreed and said his boy really liked magic. But then the mood got serious. The Duchess made him remember his promise, never teach Dale necromancy, the dark magic stuff. Damn, our boy is gonna be super sad hearing that. While his parents were having their chat, Dale, aka Han Sung, was deep in his studies in the Grand Library. In their bedroom, the Duchess told her husband she was glad he remembered his promise, and he told her not to worry. He even said he had a cool gift for Dale's birthday, which was coming up soon. Suddenly, all that calm was gone. A maid burst in, looking totally freaked out. She said something had happened to Dale. The Duke and Duchess ran down the hall, yelling Dale's name and thinking the worst. They found our boy collapsed in the study, blue mana swirling all around him like some kind of magic storm. Elena, the Duchess, rushed over to check if he was okay, but Dale, a bit dazed, said he was fine. The Duke, though, looked at his son in shock. He realized Dale could already use super strong mana, and that was not normal for a kid his age. Elena was scared and wanted to help, but Alan, the Duke, was focused. He asked Dale if he just released mana from his body like it was no big deal. Inside, our boy started to freak out, thinking he just messed up big time by showing off his power so early. But then something wild happened. The Duke's scary mood changed to a proud dad smile. He patted Dale on the head and said, of course his son was amazing, but it was a shame he couldn't teach him necromancy. That made Dale panic again. If the greatest necromancer around wouldn't teach him, how was he supposed to get strong enough for revenge? Elena, being the softie, told her son to go rest in his room. While walking away, our protagonist overheard his dad call his mom Elena and say he just thought of the perfect birthday gift. That got Dale's brain spinning. Next, it was Dale's 8th birthday. The Saxon mansion was packed full of nobles from all around the empire, and the party was super fancy. Dale sat alone upstairs, looking down at the noisy party. He didn't really get why everyone was so nice to him. After spending a whole past life being used and betrayed, all this love and celebration just felt weird to him. His mind drifted back to the time his mana went wild. He realized now it happened because he read a book called The Life of the Hero from Another World and started remembering his old life. The memories made something inside blow up, and that's why his magic power went out of control. He thought it would suck to give up on necromancy since he needed it for revenge, so he started thinking of ways to convince his dad to teach him. But he remembered that asking for that as a birthday present would probably not work. Just then, his mom Elena showed up with a mysterious person in a hood. Elena smiled and wished him a happy birthday. Dale asked who the person was. The stranger pulled back their hood and, boom, it was an elf-looking woman with blue hair and a gentle smile. Elena said this was Sophia, an elder from the Blue Magic Tower and a master of water magic. Dale was shocked when his mom told him Sophia would be his new teacher. Elena even gave him a little wink, like she was in on a secret. Dale realized this was his dad's big birthday gift, a real-life magic master. But there was a catch. Sophia was a master of water magic, which was good for defense, not the kind of explosive power he wanted. So it was pretty clear his mom really did not want him messing with dark magic. Sophia then asked Dale if they could talk alone, and he agreed. They went outside onto a snowy path. Sophia was super direct. She said she was only supposed to teach him water magic and asked if he was bummed out about it. Dale was surprised. How did she know what he really wanted? She then explained that it made sense for a kid to want to learn his dad's famous necromancy. Then she dropped some juicy info. Everyone in the Empire knew about the Duke's wedding promise to never teach dark magic to his kids. When Alan Saxon wanted to marry Lady Elena, She was scared of his dark reputation. So, to win her over, he swore he would never pass those dark arts to his children. At their wedding, the elders even wore white to show the promise was real. That's why learning dark magic right now was impossible. But Sophia wasn't all bad news. She said maybe, one day, she could find a way to talk Lady Elena into it. She asked Dale if he was willing to trust her and follow her lead. Dale was suspicious and asked why an elf would even want to help with dark magic family, since elves usually hated that stuff. Elf usually values the laws of nature, and reviving the dead is kind of the reverse of it. But Sophia just laughed. She said that even priests brought people back to life using divine power. When people do a holy resurrection, isn't it also violating the will of nature? To her, necromancy and divine power were just two sides of the same coin. Hearing that explanation, our boy was impressed. He thought Sophia was way cooler and more open-minded than most elves. Maybe she'd be a good master after all. Sophia then said it was time to start their first lesson. She knew Dale had already made a fragment of a mana circle, so she wanted him to build it into a full circle, which was the base for casting real spells. Dale was pumped. This was the first real step toward power and revenge. Sophia told him to put his hand over his heart and focus. Our protagonist nodded and closed his eyes. He could feel so much mana in this world, it was everywhere, just waiting to be used. But to control it, you had to build a mana heart circle around your heart. He gathered the little pieces of mana and forced them to spin together, just like Sophia had told him. He understood it perfectly, and soon a glowing blue circle of mana formed inside him. Dude, he did it super fast. Sophia kept giving instructions, telling him to make the mana rotate and not rush, because usually this stuff took a month. But Dale just put out his hand and showed her. Blue mana flowed out, totally under his control. He told Sophia he was already done. Sophia stared at him like she'd just seen a ghost. She couldn't believe it. Dale was supposed to be a beginner, but he had already made a full mana circle in just a few minutes. Does this make sense? She started thinking maybe he was a real magic prodigy, and honestly, she was probably right. No, Dale was one step above prodigy. Anyway, she wasn't done testing him yet. She asked if Dale could try to release mana through his new magic circle. Dale, being super confident, said he could totally do it. As he got ready, our boy started thinking about how different this life was from his last one. Most kids had a hard time just sending a little mana out of their bodies, but not this dude. In his old life, all his magic was about blowing stuff up, but it was never enough for true revenge. Now, thanks to his new dad's crazy talent, his body could handle mana like it was nothing. He even guessed that he could learn all sorts of magic, not just water stuff, from his new teacher. So, our protagonist put all his focus into his fingertips. He drew mana from his heart and made a magic circle appear. The mana got so cold it turned into a sharp ice bolt. Inside, he promised himself this would be the first of many weapons he'd use to take down the Empire someday. Dude was totally on a mission. He then pointed his hand at a tree and told Sophia he was ready. He made the ice bolt fly across the yard. It shot straight through a giant tree and busted it apart. Sophia just stared with her mouth hanging open. Mana usually fell apart when beginners tried to use it, but Dale's spell was perfect. It was super sharp, solid, and way too powerful for a kid. She was left thinking one thing. Who in the world was this little monster? She went over to the tree stump and checked it out. She realized Dale didn't just throw out some random magic. He actually pulled cold energy from the air and shaped it perfectly, like a pro. That was supposed to be just a beginner's move, but Dale did it better than most grown-up mages. Dale, though, acted all innocent, asking if he did something wrong. Sophia smiled at him, but inside her brain was spinning. There was no way a normal 8-year-old could make a spell this well. He used 3 exact steps: spin, speed up, and pack the mana together to make the ice bolt, which was something only soldiers were supposed to do. It was called the Golden Ratio Formula, and Dale pulled it off without even thinking. Sophia now understood why the Duke was sad, because he couldn't teach Dale himself. Later on, she went to see Duke Allen to give her report. The Duke was shocked when Sophia kind of hinted she might not be able to teach Dale. He said that if Dale could make a magic circle so fast, she should definitely help him get stronger. But Sophia explained that Dale didn't just make a circle, he created a perfect, super deadly spell right away. The Duke couldn't believe it. She told him the spell was military level, with a perfect formula, and said his son had a real knack for making things that could kill. The Duke got the wrong idea and asked if she was saying she couldn't handle teaching a kid with so much destructive power. Well, everyone knows the Blue Magic Tower pursues non-violent magic, but Sophia quickly said that was not the problem. In fact, she wanted to help Dale even more because of his gift. The Duke was about to agree when Sophia brought up the necromancy magic, hinting that Dale might be looking for his dad's family magic. The Duke suddenly looked worried, realizing Dale might already be on the path to learning dark magic. She kept telling him she respected his promise to Elena, but he couldn't just choose everything for Dale, not when the kid was this talented. While all the grown-ups were talking about his crazy powers, Dale was hanging out in the hallway, trying to eavesdrop. He couldn't hear anything, so he just slumped onto the floor, sure they were talking about him again. He thought back to his magic lesson and realized he needed to be way more careful with his power from now on. He remembered how shocked Sophia was and decided he couldn't keep going full blast like that. Then someone called his name. Our boy looked up and saw a super shiny knight with a big smile. Dale's whole face lit up as he called out, "Uncle Helmet!" Helmet greeted him with a big laugh and asked what he was doing on the floor. Dale, acting silly, asked where his uncle had been. He then told him he was out fighting monsters and keeping the family safe, then picked him up in a huge bear hug. While Helmet held him, Dale guessed right away that his uncle had been in the dungeon, fighting all the scary stuff down there. He got a little sad, thinking about how dangerous dungeons were in this world and how knights like Helmet had to risk their lives all the time. He knew the Saxon lands were even crazier than other places, because, after he beat the Demon King in his last life, the Empire dumped all the leftover monsters here. That was some serious crap. Back in the moment, our protagonist told Helmet to be careful out there. Helmet was touched and asked if Dale was worried about him. Right then, Duke Alan came out of the study, and Helmet quickly knelt to show respect. The Duke thanked him for his hard work. Suddenly, Elena, Dale's mom, showed up with a huge happy smile. She ran to Dale and said she heard he reached the first circle in magic, and she was super proud. His dad also congratulated him and asked if Dale wanted a reward for his accomplishment. This put our MC in a tough spot. He really wanted to beg his dad for necromancy lessons, but knew that would make everyone suspicious. He scrambled for a normal wish, then shouted that he wanted a little sister. Both his parents turned bright red, totally shocked. "Bro, you know how to act like a little kid sometimes." After a super awkward pause, the Duke stuttered that they would try their best. In the back, Helmet and another knight almost lost it, trying not to laugh out loud. That night, after all the birthday hype and magic madness, Dale was finally alone in his bed. He felt totally wiped out. Acting like a normal kid all day was hard work, and using magic for the first time in this little body was even tougher. He yawned and started drifting off, thinking he really needed some good sleep. But nope, no sweet dreams for this guy. Suddenly, he was thrown into a crazy nightmare. It was like he got teleported back into his old life. He saw that bastard Brandenburg, the same jerk who betrayed and stabbed him before. Brandenburg's ghostly face popped up, looking all evil and creepy. He started trash-talking Dale, asking if our boy was getting soft in this new comfy life. He teased him. Maybe he had already forgotten about revenge. Then, the bastard leaned in really close and said the Empire would never stop hunting Dale, and they were going to wipe him out completely. Dang, that was harsh. Our boy freaked out and snapped awake, gasping for air. And then, bam! A huge blast of blue mana burst out of his chest, totally out of control. He groaned in pain, grabbing at his chest. It felt like his heart was about to explode, bro. This was a mana rampage, which is like when a mage's power goes nuts and they can't control it. Dale was super frustrated. Even in this new life, the Empire and all his old trauma just wouldn't leave him alone. He got so mad that he cursed the Empire under his breath and stumbled out of his room, hoping the cold night air would chill him out. Except, going outside didn't help at all. The mana rampage just got worse. He was struggling to breathe, thinking he might actually pass out. Things were looking really bad. But then, a calm voice cut through the chaos. Someone said it looked like our boy was in a tough spot. Dale looked up and saw Sophia, his magic teacher, standing there cool as ever. She said she could see the mana rampage and that he had crazy talent, but she also admitted his magic made her feel kind of nervous, like there was something dangerous inside him. She then walked over, put her hand on his chest, and sent out calming mana energy into him. She thought to herself that if that dark, nasty feeling in Dale's magic took over, he might never be the same again. Thanks to her, the wild energy finally chilled out. Dale looked down and could control his mana again easily in his hands. He felt super relieved, like he just dodged a huge disaster. Sophia called his name, looking really serious. She gave him a reality check, saying his magic wasn't for healing or creating things, it was built for destroying, dude. She told him it was a dangerous gift. Then she pulled out a big, thick book with a creepy pentagram on the cover. She explained that because Dale's magic was so risky, she thought it was lucky she could be the one to teach him. She handed over the book, and our protagonist nearly fainted. Just holding it, he could feel the dark power oozing from the pages. He instantly knew it was a necromancy book. Sophia smiled a gentle smile and said maybe it was fate for her to teach him. She even wished him a happy birthday again. Bro, Sophia is the best teacher ever. Even our boy was so surprised and grateful that he ran up and hugged her super tight around the waist. Her face softened, and she patted his back, teasing that he was a really needy kid. Can you blame him though? That was a pretty epic birthday present. A few days later, Sophia took Dale out to a snowy field for their next lesson. She told Dale his target for today would be rabbits. She told him to remember what it felt like going hunting with his dad, and to focus all that energy into his magic. Dale nodded, made a magic circle, and then spotted a white rabbit in the snow. He got serious, and fired off a sharp ice spell. The ice shot hit the rabbit dead on, and the poor thing was done for. Sophia just watched, totally calm. She noticed that Dale didn't even flinch. His hands were steady, and there was no regret in his eyes. Dude was stone cold. Yeah, she convinced herself again that Dale was born to be a hunter, the beast with its killing intent. She then called out to him and started a new lesson. She explained that even when mages use the same spell, it comes out different for everyone. She asked Dale if he knew why. Dale said he didn't. So Sophia smiled and dropped some magic wisdom. She told him that magic is like a mirror. It shows what's inside your mind and heart. The way you think and feel shapes the magic you make. She showed her own sweet, gentle water magic to prove her point. She told Dale that magic is basically a reflection of who you are on the inside. She went on, saying that spell names like Firewall are just a way to help mages picture their spells. At the big magic towers, each one teaches a different style. The red magic tower goes for firepower and destruction, while her blue magic tower is all about being flexible and flowing. There's also the dark, white, and green magic towers, each with their own vibe. After all that, she smiled again and decided maybe this stuff was a little too deep for Dale right now. Now that there was a rabbit corpse, Sophia started Dale's first real necromancy lesson. She said the basic move was to raise a zombie. Dale went for it, figuring out the necromancy magic is not as easy as it seems, and sending out shadowy mana and attaching invisible strings to all the rabbit's important spots, like its head and legs. The dead rabbit jerked up to its feet, and its eyes started glowing red. She looked impressed and said he did a good job. Next step, Sophia asked Dale if he was ready for the next challenge. Dale said he was totally ready. She told him to put a defensive spell, called Frozen Armor, on his new undead minion. Dale focused, blue mana sparking everywhere, and shot out a burst of ice power. In seconds, the zombie rabbit was covered in jagged, shiny ice armor. Sophia checked out his work and said he did pretty well. She wanted to make sure it was strong, so she made her own giant ice bolt and fired it right at the zombie. The bolt smashed into the armor, breaking some of the ice, but the zombie rabbit was still standing. Dale's face lit up with a huge smile. He was super proud that his zombie creation blocked his master's attack. Seeing Dale all fired up, Sophia nodded and said he did awesome, then asked if he had another wish. Dale, still pumped, said he wanted her to properly teach him both the dark arts and more techniques for his water magic. Bro, this kid was never satisfied, always aiming higher. Hearing that, Sophia just gave him a tiny weird smile, and then she shut him down with one word. No. Yup, just like that. Dale was so shocked that he could not even say anything. Sophia started explaining her reasons. She told him that what he did with water magic was still super basic stuff. She said that water magic is tough and needs a mage to be really deep and smart as they get better. She reminded Dale that most beginners could barely master one type of magic, and handling two at the same time was crazy hard. Only a really rare mage could do that, and definitely not a kid his age. She said that what our boy wanted was just too much. It was way too ambitious. Dale was totally stunned. He wondered why she called it ambition like it was a bad thing. Then he tried to act all sad, and reminded Sophia that she had promised they would walk this path together. He made it sound like she was breaking her word if she refused to help him now. And guess what? That trick worked. Sophia got flustered and could not fight back against Dale's drama. She quickly ended the lesson for the day and walked off. But Dale was not about to give up, not this kid. That night, he went into the big study, carrying a mountain of books. He was super determined. He wanted all the power. He told himself that he could handle anything on his own. He promised himself that he would work so hard that Sophia would have to teach him both water magic and necromancy. No arguments. After that long, crazy night, somebody called Dale's name again and again. He looked up and saw Sophia standing there on the snowy plain. She looked worried and said that he looked like he had not slept at all. Dale tried to act super cheerful and told her he stayed up to prepare something just for her. Sophia told him to be careful and not work too hard, but our boy just smiled and said he was ready. Now it was showtime. He threw his hand out, and a dark magic circle appeared. He pointed to an armored zombie rabbit. Sophia watched with a little smile, and she saw that he had already learned the basic spell in just one night. But Dale was not done showing off, not even close. The armor on the zombie rabbit suddenly started to crack and glow. Then, boom, it exploded with ice shards shooting everywhere. Sophia was shocked. She realized this was a super advanced spell called Ice Explosion. But wait, there was more. Now the zombie rabbit created a dark ball inside its stomach, and it exploded again, blasting the flying ice shards even farther. Dude, the combo was wild. Ice and dark magic mashed together. Sophia had to think fast, and made a shining, six-sided magic shield to protect herself. When the dust finally settled, she stared at Dale, totally speechless. Our boy stayed calm and explained that he used two spells, Corpse Explosion and Ice Explosion, at the same time. He said he mixed water magic and dark magic into one attack. To prove he was the real deal, he made an orb of water magic in one hand and a swirl of dark energy in the other. With a big, confident grin, he asked Sophia if this was enough to call him a dual mage. Bro, this kid knows how to aura farming. Anyway, Sophia just stood there, her shield still up. She had never seen a combo attack like that before. Dale's magic was seriously strong and kinda scary. He had used the corpse explosion to make the blast bigger, and then sent ice and bone flying everywhere like deadly blades. She then went down on one knee in the snow to look at the sharp ice pieces. She thought Dale's magic was not just creative, it was also made for killing, like something a soldier would use in a war. She wondered what kind of creepy images Dale had in his mind to make spells like that. While she was thinking, Dale's face went super happy. He called out to his uncle Helmut, who was riding up on a horse. Helmut was leading a bunch of knights in black armor. He greeted Dale and Sophia. Our boy got really excited and asked if he had just come back from a dungeon raid. Helmut nodded. These guys were the Black Cavalry, the most epic knights in the Dukedom of Saxon. They could cover their lances with magical energy, and Helmut was one of the 7 strongest swordmasters on the whole continent. Dale saw his chance, flashed his best smile, and reminded Helmut about teaching him sword fighting. The uncle laughed and said he did not forget. Then he told Dale not to hang out in the cold for too long as his knights rode away. Sophia then told Dale it was time to go back to the estate, and Dale agreed, calling her master, like a good student. That night, Sophia met with Dale's parents, Duke Alan and Duchess Elena. She told them calmly that their son had mastered the first circle in both necromancy and water magic. The Duke and Duchess were shocked. Duke Alan reminded Sophia they only wanted her to teach Dale water magic. Sophia said she knew that, but as Dale's mentor, she felt she had to teach him what he wanted, because his ambition was way bigger than just one kind of magic. Duchess Elena thought about it and agreed. She said that Sophia could teach him about some dark magic if that was what Dale wanted, but she should also continue teaching water magic, as promised. Sophia nodded. She would take care of Dale. As she left, she told the Duchess she was sorry for not keeping her word. After Sophia was gone, Elena said she could not believe how amazing their kid was. He had become a dual mage at only 8 years old. The Duke agreed, saying that Dale's power was a little scary, but of course he had to be strong, because he was their child. The Duke somehow feels sorry and tells Elena that he wants to teach Dale necromancy himself. He said he wanted his son to be strong enough to do a lord's job. He also noted that, as a mage, he wanted a super talented student like Dale, but most of all, he wanted his son to get his legacy. The Duke got really emotional, bro. He even apologized to Elena for breaking a promise he made a long time ago. Elena listened with a serious face. She knew people hated necromancy and were scared of it. That's why she always tried to make the Duke stop. But after seeing how determined Alan was, she could not stay angry. She gave him a big, warm hug. She stated that if he was going to do this, he should teach Dale to be so good at necromancy that nobody else's opinion mattered. That was actually kinda sweet. The Duke hugged her back, super moved. Then he swore, on everything that he would train Dale to be the best of the best. You could tell he meant it. Soon, it was time for Dale's very first necromancy lesson with his dad. This was not just some normal class, bro. The Duke took Dale deep underground, all the way to a spooky magic workshop under the castle. It was dark and kind of creepy, with a stone table in the middle. There was even a dead rabbit just lying there. The Duke started the lesson by giving Dale a super stern look. He was really disappointed. He wanted to know how Dale could bring back the dead if he did not understand how those bodies worked. Dale tried to defend himself. He said he just did what Sophia taught him, nothing fancy. But the Duke was not having it, dude. He told our protagonist he was not allowed to use those basic spells with him. So, instead of magic, the Duke made Dale study. Hardcore study. He gave him a desk stacked with giant books about bones and muscles. The Duke told him to memorize everything about how every living thing was built. Man, Dale must have thought this was going to be boring, but he worked super hard and remembered every single word from those big books. Bro basically learned how to suddenly be a doctor in his life. When Dale finished studying, his dad handed him a grimoire and told him it was time for real magic. But when Dale looked up, he was shocked. There was a goblin corpse on the table. The Duke noticed Dale's confusion and grinned. He explained the difference between a weak mage and a real master at necromancy. He said a rookie might make a famous swordmaster's body just walk around like a lame zombie, but a true pro could turn a normal soldier into a death knight. He pointed at the goblin and told Dale to show what he could do with it. Our boy took a deep breath and got ready. Purple mana started swirling around his body. Yeah, he was not playing around. He realized this was way harder than the rabbit. The goblin had 2 legs and was way more complicated. He shot a string of purple energy into the goblin. He tried to animate it, but it was like handling a crazy puppet with a lot of strings. He wanted to make the goblin stronger, so he tried to make its body harder and tougher. But dude, he messed up. The goblin's body got so stiff that it could not even move. Crap, talk about a fail. Right then, the Duke came over and put a hand on Dale's shoulder. He told him that making the body hard was smart, but it also meant the goblin could not move at all. Then the Duke's eyes started glowing with magic and told Dale to watch and learn. The Duke released a massive wave of dark magic that wrapped around the goblin. The goblin floated up in the air, sparking with super powerful purple energy. He then started explaining stuff. He said that the ribcage is built to protect organs, but dead things do not even need that. As he talked, his magic twisted and changed the goblin's bones. The ribcage exploded outward and turned into long, sharp bone blades sticking out of its chest. A real necromancer has to know how to change a body to fit his wishes. Dude, that was creepy, but kinda awesome too. Dale just stood there sweating, not sure if he should be scared or impressed. So, this is the real necromancy. Standing next to the super freaky goblin, the Duke said this was the foundation of black magic. Knowing how to change bodies for your own goals. Dale looked up at his dad, totally changed inside. He asked his dad to teach him how the Noir Magic Tower thought about magic, like, what was their main idea? The Duke looked really happy at that. He asked if his son truly wanted to know the truth. Then he knelt down to Dale's level and said that the truth always lives inside death. To find it, they had to understand what life really meant. Those words hit Dale hard. Suddenly, he remembered when he was Hansung, a hero on a burning battlefield filled with bodies. A man was kneeling in front of him, begging to live. Hansung just ignored the man's cries and cut him down with a bloody sword. The memory was brutal, bro. He never knew the beauty of life. After all, he was always be a killing machine. Our boy suddenly came back to the present, shaking and sweating. The Duke called Dale's name, worried that something was wrong. Dale stammered and said he was fine, even though he looked freaked out. He tried to stand tall and kept telling himself that he was okay, even while the whole room felt like it was spinning. As the days went by, our MC kept doing magic training with his dad. Pretty soon, everybody in the Empire heard the crazy news. Duke Alan Saxon was teaching his son the dark arts himself. The nobles were freaking out, because the Duke had broken a huge promise to his wife. Now, everyone, from sneaky red-haired guys to strict old lords and clever witches, was paying attention to Dale and his family. So they are all the enemy in the future? Or what? Anyway, a few weeks later, Dale was not just sitting around doing magic. Nope, this kid was busy learning sword fighting, and his teacher was none other than his uncle, Helmut. They were dueling with wooden swords, smacking and clashing like it was a real battle. Every time Dale attacked, Helmut blocked him super easily, but he did it with this big, confident smile, like he was having the time of his life. Dale did not give up, though. He stared at his uncle, looking for any tiny chance to break through. Helmut noticed this and just smirked, clearly impressed with how stubborn his nephew was. Then, he went on the attack. He swung hard, but Dale was quick. He dodged and then did this insane move. Dude went airborne, spinning around and coming at Helmut from a wild angle. Helmut's eyes almost popped out of his head in shock. Dale's move actually worked. He knocked the sword right out of his uncle's hand. Dale was breathing hard, like he just ran a marathon. And Helmut just laughed like crazy, totally loving the fight, and gave him some serious praise. But our boy was sharp. He pointed out that there was no way a sword god like Helmut would just drop his weapon. He guessed his uncle did it on purpose. Helmut said that was not true. He really was surprised. He explained that he had used real sword moves, the kind that would have taken down a normal person for good. Then he got a little sad, saying Dale's sword skills were so good, it was a shame he was going to be a mage instead. He then put a hand on Dale's shoulder, looking all serious. He wanted to know why Dale trained so hard, especially when his hands were already all bandaged up. He even knelt down to fix up Dale's wounds. He told Dale not to push himself until he got hurt. Our MC looked at his own hands, and then told his uncle that he had a reason for working this hard. With a big grin, he explained that it would be lame for the Duke's son to just hide behind magic and guards. And, come on, he said, who would miss the chance to learn sword fighting from one of the top 7 swordmasters in the whole continent? Bro, Helmut loved that answer. He laughed so loud it probably scared the birds away. He said if he had a kid like Dale, he would be proud forever. Dale pumped his fist in the air, super happy to get that kind of compliment. But their fun moment did not last. The Duchess, Elena, showed up, looking like she was having a good time watching her son train. She told them they seemed really cheerful, and Dale ran up to greet his mom. Elena smiled and said she came to check on Dale's training, but she also had some news. She asked if he remembered what he wanted for his birthday. Dale looked confused for a second. He remembered when he told his parents he wanted a little sister for his birthday. Wait, is this real? His eyes went huge. Elena looked super happy as she put a gentle hand on her belly. She told Dale that he really had to take care of his little sibling now. Our boy went from shocked to crazy happy in about 2 seconds. He promised his mom that he would do a great job as a big brother. Fast forward 10 months, the Saxon family was all together in a really fancy bedroom. The new baby was here, and Dale could not take his eyes off his little sister. He leaned over, just staring, like he could not believe she was real. Elena teased him, asking if the baby was really that interesting. Dale said, yeah. He still thought it was kind of unreal. He touched the baby's cheek thinking she was just the cutest thing ever. Duke Alan saw how much Dale loved his sister, and he asked if Dale wanted to hold her. Our boy freaked out a little, but Elena gently handed the baby over. Turns out, holding her was not as scary as he thought. The Duke said the baby looked just like Dale did as a baby. Elena added that it was so weird, the baby always cried with her, but never with Dale. She said the baby seemed super happy in his arms. Dale looked down at his sister with a soft, gentle face. Then Alan asked Dale how he felt now. Dale's face changed. He got serious. He told his dad that even though the baby was light, she felt really heavy at the same time. The Duke smiled in this wise, dad way, and told him that was called the weight of life. He put a hand on Dale's shoulder and told him never to forget that feeling. Just then, Elena jumped in, saying it was time for Dale's lesson, and that Sophia was probably waiting already. Now, Dale went out to train. Sophia was already there, and told him this lesson would be real combat. Our boy looked a bit nervous, and asked if he could really fight her for real. Sophia said she wanted him to come at her with everything he had. Dale got ready, magic swirling all around him. He made a glowing blue magic circle appear. Sophia was surrounded by her own water magic, looking pumped to see how much he had improved. Our protagonist did not hold back. He launched 2 big sharp ice projectiles at Sophia. But Sophia? She smashed the first one like it was nothing, saying it was way too slow. The second one she just knocked away without even trying. She caught a piece of the broken ice and shot Dale a sly smile, asking why he was going easy on his teacher. Dale was left standing there, totally silent, realizing he just got called out in a big way. She told him to hurry up and put up a barrier, but she was not going easy on him at all. She blasted him with a huge wave of water magic. Dale's eyes went wide as the magic attack raced toward him. He barely managed to block it, forming an ice gauntlet around his arm right at the last second. The gauntlet shattered from the force, but he was okay. He thought to himself that if he had not blocked that attack, he would have been in big trouble. Sophia kept smiling, calm and proud, and said she was impressed that Dale could make ice armor so fast. Now, she urged him to attack again. In response, Dale put his hands on the cold, snowy ground and started to focus hard. He poured all his mana into the earth, and suddenly, bam! An enormous, sparkling ice wall shot up between them. Dude, this thing was huge. Sophia was super surprised. She wondered why Dale would just throw up a giant wall like that in the middle of a fight. She thought maybe he needed a break or something. But then, she noticed something weird. The ice was way thicker than normal, and she realized the mana inside it was built in this super complicated way. She reached out to touch the wall, trying to figure out Dale's plan, and saw it had a hexagon shape, which was part of a crazy spell formula. She was about to say something, but then Dale, hiding behind the wall and looking super intense, gave a mental command to the spell. Suddenly, the whole ice wall exploded. There was a huge flash of blue light. Shards and freezing mist went flying everywhere. Sophia was totally caught off guard. For a second, it looked like she really got hit and shredded into pieces. Bro, this must be some trick, right? No way Sophia just died like that. Anyway, when the dust settled, Dale stood there in the wreckage, looking pretty proud of himself. He started thinking about what he just did. He had made the ice wall extra dense, packed it tight, and then compressed it like a grenade. He figured it would be super hard for even his master to dodge that kind of surprise attack. But then his smile faded. He saw somebody frozen solid in the ice and freaked out. Oh crap. Was that Sophia? He shouted her name, feeling panic rise up. But guess what? The frozen figure was just a fake. The real Sophia appeared right next to him, acting totally chill, and asked if he called her. Dale was so startled, he almost jumped out of his boots. She waved her hand and made the ice statue disappear. She actually praised Dale for pulling off such a wild spell. She then touched her cheek and noticed she had a little cut. Damn, she was honestly amazed that Dale, just a first circle mage, could actually land a hit on someone as strong as her. Yet our boy felt bad and said he didn't mean to hurt her. But Sophia told him not to worry. She even felt grateful for the wound, because it meant Dale trusted her enough to use his full power. She looked super proud and ruffled his hair, asking how he came up with such a move. Dale just grinned and said it was all thanks to her training. She just gave him the warmest smile ever. Man, that was a wholesome teacher-student moment. Later on, Sophia went to report to Duke Alan Saxon about what happened. The Duke immediately saw the wound on her face and looked worried. She told him she got careless while teaching Dale and that his spell was really sharp. The Duke was concerned and said he owed her a lot for helping his son, but Sophia just brushed it off and said teaching Dale was actually a joy. Then the Duke got serious. He told her that there was news about orcs crossing into their territory. He said it wasn't a huge threat, but he wanted to send Dale into battle. Sophia was shocked. She said Dale was way too young for real combat. But the Duke explained Dale would not be put on the front lines. Even so, he said that defending their land was the Saxon family's duty, and as the heir, his son had to step up. Dude was not messing around. He even let out a scary dark aura for a second to show how serious he was. Seeing that, Sophia asked what he wanted her to do. The Duke's mood softened, and he revealed his plan. He was going to let Dale use a powerful family artifact, but Sophia had to help him learn to control it. Now, if you don't know, Artifacts in this world are no joke. They are objects full of crazy power and are basically alive with their own will. To use them, you have to pay with your magic or even your life force. The stronger the artifact, the more dangerous it is. Some can even kill you, so, yeah, not for newbies. The scene changed to a huge, fancy corridor. Dale, his dad, and Sophia walked together. The Duke explained that the Saxon family had learned how to deal with powerful artifacts over generations. When they reached the artifact vault, the Duke stopped Dale and told him that, as the heir, he had to be ready for battle soon. Dale was stunned at first, but then he started to get really hyped. But, of course, there was a catch. Before he could touch anything, the Duke said he had to first learn how to control the power of darkness that ran in their family. Then, the doors opened, and bro, the vault was insane. There were hundreds of magical items everywhere, each one glowing or giving off a weird energy. Dale could actually feel all the mana in the room. The Duke pointed out the Demon King artifacts. These were the real deal, super dangerous, super rare, and not your everyday magic trinkets. Dale was told not to touch anything until he learned how to control them. But of course, our protagonist was already gone. While the Duke and Sophia were warning him, he had sneaked off into the vault and started wandering. The Duke spun around, looking panicked, and asked where his son had disappeared to this time. Meanwhile, Dale was strolling around the vault, totally chill, checking out the crazy stuff around him. The dark artifacts started whispering to him, each trying to lure him in. One shield offered to help him destroy his enemies. Some rings and little treasures wanted to make him powerful beyond his dreams. But our boy just smiled and shook his head. He thought that kind of power was not enough for what he wanted. He needed something even bigger for the revenge he dreamed about. That's when he noticed a dark, hooded cloak was floating beside him. He recognized it as a shadow cloak, a super rare item that used to belong to Duke Berta, one of the Demon King's top guys. This cloak could control shadows and turn the wearer into a serious nightmare for anyone. No hesitation. He grabbed the cloak and tried it on. But the moment he put it over his shoulders, things got real. Dark shadows shot out and wrapped around him, pulling him into a creepy, empty void. A scary voice echoed, shouting again and again that it was hungry. This was not just a magic item, it was alive. Turns out, the shadow inside the cloak was from its last master, and it could act like a living thing. If Dale wanted to control it, he had to force the shadow beast to obey him completely. Well, our MC was not scared though. He just grinned, all bold, ready for a fight. Right then, a gigantic monster made of pure darkness dropped down, ready to battle Dale in this wild trial of wills. Man, things were about to get insane. Near him, Sophia and Duke Allen were shocked. The cloak wasn't just a coat anymore, dude. It turned into a giant ball of darkness, swallowing Dale up. Time started ticking by, and the Duke was getting more and more worried. He told Sophia that if this test went on too long, Dale could totally lose his mind or even get eaten by the shadow monster. Sophia was like, oh crap, what do we do? The Duke said they might have to drag Dale back by force. But just as the Duke was about to act, the big shadow sphere started shaking like crazy. Then, boom, the darkness exploded and disappeared, and right there in the middle was our boy, just chilling, totally fine, and wearing that crazy artifact cloak like it was no big deal. He stepped out, calm as anything, and answered his dad. Sophia ran up to him, super anxious, wanting to know if he was okay. Dale said he was fine, and even joked that it just stung a little. He was grinning, like the whole thing was just a quick workout or something. Sophia was absolutely stunned. She couldn't believe Dale was totally unhurt, even though that cloak was supposed to mess up even the toughest mages. She wondered how a little kid could handle all that mental pressure and not go nuts. But Dale wasn't done. He looked at his dad and with this totally innocent face, asked if he could try on some of the other artifacts too. Bro, the Duke and Sophia were both so shocked, they just stood there with their mouths open. After a big sigh, the Duke finally said yes. Dale got super happy, thanked his dad, and rushed off ready to test every single artifact in that vault. Dude was going to be busy for a while. A few days later, out on the Saxon family training field, our protagonist was ready for more action. His uncle Helmut saw him and nearly dropped his sword. He pointed at the shadow cloak and asked if it was really that infamous artifact. Dale said yep, that was the one. Helmut was still worried and told him that the cloak was supposed to be super hard to control. Dale just shrugged and said it felt fine, just a tiny prickling, nothing scary. Then he joked that maybe the cloak was just lonely. Suddenly, a small, toothy shadow creature crawled out from the darkness at his feet. But our boy doesn't care. The shadow creature actually got annoyed and let out a tiny scream, so Dale just grinned and stepped on its head like it was a little bug. Man, these cloaks must be thinking it chose the wrong master. Anyway, Dale told Helmut he had a request, a real fight. He wanted to spar with his uncle, for real this time. Helmut was caught off guard, but then his face lit up. He was pumped. His whole body started glowing with this blue energy, showing just how strong he was, one of the 7 sword masters on the continent, dude. Dale felt the pressure right away, but Helmut smiled and promised he would only use basic sword moves, no magic aura or anything. Dale's eyes got serious. He thought to himself that knights always fight with everything they have, so maybe his uncle wasn't actually going to take it easy. But our boy had a secret plan. He wanted to use this sparring match to really test out his new shadow cloak. He needed to see if the weapons it could make were actually useful in a real fight. So, he let the shadows rise up and then kicked off the battle with a shadow blade rush, shooting a bunch of sharp, dark projectiles at Helmut. Dude, Helmut just swung his giant sword once and smashed all the shadow blades like they were paper. Our boy was totally shocked. His uncle had just used pure muscle to beat a magic attack. Helmut started laughing, super impressed, and said Dale's attack was awesome. Now it was his turn. He charged at Dale with insane speed. Dale dodged the first swing and used the shadows from his cloak to try and trap him with sharp, spiky shadows shooting up from the ground. But Helmut didn't even flinch. He just grabbed one of the spikes with his metal glove and stopped it cold. Dale couldn't believe how strong his uncle was. Then he jumped way up and brought his sword down in a big overhead swing. Dale had to throw up a shadow shield to block it. The impact was insane, cracking the ground and sending him sliding backwards. Helmut landed and was amazed that Dale actually blocked a hit that could break any normal sword. There, our protagonist realized just how much stronger artifact magic was compared to regular stuff. Helmut was fired up now and yelled that they should go for 10 more rounds. They started clashing over and over. The other knights watching from the sidelines were losing their minds. They whispered that none of them had ever lasted more than 2 hits against his boss, but Dale was keeping up with him. Those guys were starting to feel like there was a huge gap between them and their young master. Fast forward a few days, and it was almost time for Dale to head out with the army. That night, his mom, Duchess Elena, made one last try to stop him from going. She held his baby sister and told him that she was going to ask his dad to keep him safe, because she just couldn't let her son go into such a dangerous place. Dale stood beside her, looking calm but serious. He told his mom not to worry, because his dad and Uncle Helmut would be there to protect him. But Elena was still worried sick. Dale got really serious then. He said he needed to become stronger so that, one day, he could handle the responsibilities of being the next duke. He gently patted his sleeping baby sister and explained that when the time came, he wanted to be powerful enough to protect her, their mom, and their dad. Dale finished by asking his mom to let him go, so he could become strong enough to keep his family safe. Dang, that kid was growing up fast. Elena just smiled and looked at him, all loving, and finally said that he could go with the army. She gave him her blessing, and wow, Dale felt so much better. He promised her that he would come back soon, acting all cool as he climbed onto his horse. Dude was feeling pretty grown up, not gonna lie. At dawn, everything changed. The army was waiting at a military camp, people moving everywhere. Helmut told Duke Alan that everyone was ready to go. The Duke nodded, all serious, and then turned to his son. Out of nowhere, he told Dale to give the order to march instead of him. That was a big deal, bro. The Duke explained that the Black Cavalry would belong to his son someday, and that these knights were his to command. Dale was shocked. Suddenly, he realized something huge. These were his own soldiers now. He often becomes a leader for a big army. But now, it's not the soldiers of Han Sung, his past life, but Dale's. That hit him hard, and he felt a new purpose burning inside. This was his first real battle as a Saxon, and he swore to himself that he was going to do things differently this time. He then moved to the front, feeling the weight of what he had to do. He took a deep breath, raised his fist, and shouted the command for everyone to march. The knights all raised their weapons and yelled back super loud. The sound was insane, like the whole forest was shaking. Everyone could feel how pumped Dale was. As they marched through the woods, the plan got explained. There were 250 cavalrymen and some tough winter wardens with them. Their enemy? About 1,000 orcs. Yeah, that's a lot. The plan was to cross a fast, dangerous river and attack the orc camp by surprise. But how were all those horses and knights going to get across a wild river in one shot? That was the big question. Then, boom, Sophia showed up out of nowhere, surrounded by little snowflakes. She told everyone to move back because she was going to make an ice bridge for the army. Dale was so happy to see her, almost getting emotional. He knew Sophia didn't like fighting, so her coming to help was a big deal. Using her awesome magic, she froze the whole river into a giant, strong bridge. It looked amazing, like something out of a storybook. She waved her hand and told the troops they could cross. The Duke thanked her, and Dale looked back at his teacher. He told her that he was going now. Sophia just stood there, quiet, watching Dale go. After he left, she felt tears in her eyes. She even smiled a little, thinking about how much she worried about her student. Next, the real action started at the orc camp. The orcs were chilling in their rough camp inside a deep ravine, not expecting anything. Suddenly, the winter wardens, Those super skilled archers jumped out and let loose a wave of flaming arrows. The whole camp exploded into fire, chaos, and panic. Orcs were running everywhere, getting burned or taken down by arrows. But then this huge orc survivor roared so loud it shook the trees. That was the signal. Helmet yelled for the cavalry to charge. The black-armored knights formed up into a sharp wedge shape and blasted forward with their lances down. From a high cliff above, Dale, Duke Allen, and Helmet watched everything. Helmet asked Dale what he thought about the attack. Dale, thinking like a boss, broke down the charge in his head. He noticed that with the knights using their secret aura trick and their cool Kull lance formation, the orcs were basically doomed. He saw that the battle was totally one-sided right now. Duke Allen agreed, saying this was what made the Saxon cavalry so famous, but Helmet stopped Dale from getting too confident. He warned that this was just the start. On the field, the surviving orcs tried to fight back by getting into a shield wall, but the black cavalry smashed into them with crazy power. Helmet watched closely and decided to pull his men back so they could reorganize for more attacks. He fired a magical signal, and all the knights started to retreat. The orcs were so confused, they had no idea what was going on. Then, something bad happened. While the cavalry was falling back, the orcs saw one knight lagging behind. They aimed their spears, hit the knight's horse, and the poor guy crashed to the ground. From the cliff, Dale saw the whole thing. His face went dark. He quietly said that things looked rough for that guy. Helmut, next to him, just coldly said that one knight was down. Dale was shocked and a bit disgusted. He couldn't believe they were just going to leave one of their own behind. He watched as a massive orc came at the fallen knight with a giant axe, and our boy got mad. He shouted to his father and uncle, demanding to know why they were just standing there and not helping. But Duke Allen and Helmet stayed silent, looking hard and serious. Dale realized he wouldn't make it in time if he tried to ride down there. He knew the only way to save the knight was to use magic, and it had to be a super strong, one-shot spell to break through an orc's crazy tough skin. Fast. He started changing the magic formula for his ice bolt. He added some cool math for sniper-style shooting, and made it more stable, like a crazy long-range bullet. He even gave his move a sick name. Ice Bolt Barrett M98B. Yeah, that sounded dangerous. Bro playing some Battlefield 6 out of nowhere. Just as the orc was about to bring down the axe, our protagonist fired his new magic. A bright, icy beam shot across the battlefield and drilled right through the orc's head. The orc dropped like a rock. Duke Allen and Helmet just stared, totally speechless. The Duke finally said it was insane that Dale could hit a target from that far away. But Dale didn't wait around to chat. He jumped on his horse and charged into the chaos, ready to fight with his own hands. Helmet yelled after him, but Duke Allen stopped him and said to let Dale go. The Duke was smiling, proud, and a little amazed, thinking that his son was already creating new spells and acting like a true leader. He thought that Dale's inner world, his heart, was probably almost complete. Anyway, Dale could see the orcs were regrouping and looking meaner than ever. But he noticed something big. The knight he just rescued was totally frozen with fear on the ground. Dude looked like he'd seen a ghost. Dale realized he now had two problems. Those angry orcs, and this knight who couldn't even stand up. He also thought about his magic. His best spells were strong, but they took way too long to cast. Using long magic in close combat? Nah, bad idea. And he knew it. He thought to himself that he had to find a shortcut, kind of like when you make a math problem super simple. Right as another orc came running at him, he quickly created a new short spell in his mind. But bro, he wasn't satisfied. He wanted it even faster. So he trimmed it down again and came up with his own new move. He called it Ice Bullet. Nice name, huh? The orc was about to smash the scared knight, but our boy was way faster. From up on his horse, he fired the new Ice Bullet spell. It was like, BAM! The ice shot hit the orc right in the head. The orc's head exploded like a watermelon, dude. The rest of the orc's body just dropped in front of the knight, who couldn't believe what he was seeing. That knight looked up and saw his young master, Dale, and was totally confused about why his master would risk his own life for him. Dale, always chill, got off his horse and told the knight not to worry. He even gave the dude a confident smile and reminded him that House Saxon never left a loyal sword behind. That moment was pretty awesome, but it didn't last long because more orcs came running, looking ready to start some serious trouble. So, Dale was like, alright, time for something wild. He lifted his hand, and a crazy purple energy started swirling around him. Bro, it was time for the Shadow Cloak to show off. Our protagonist cast a spell called Shadow Blade, and suddenly, a bunch of sharp, dark shadows burst up from the ground. These things just sliced through the orcs like they were made of butter. Dale gave a dark smile and ordered his shadows to finish the job. Dang, that was cold. One orc survived and looked super confused, but then another crazy thing happened. A giant dark vortex showed up and ate it alive. Talk about scary, bro. Dale turned to the last orc, looking all happy, and blasted it with another ice bullet. No more orcs left. Bro have no mercy on those ugly orcs. He casually wiped some blood off his face, like this was just a normal day. Then he turned back to the rescued knight and told him it was over. The poor knight was still in total shock and could barely say Dale's name. He admitted he couldn't even move his legs. Dale just smiled, probably feeling a little awkward now, and decided to just pick the knight up like he was a sack of potatoes. He told the guy with a bright grin that they made it out. Right then, Helmut came galloping up with the whole black cavalry squad. Bro, the rescued knight looks like he's falling in love with our MC. Anyway, Dale saw Helmut and said that he would leave the rest of the fight to his uncle. Helmut got super hyped and shouted for the cavalry to charge. The knights all cheered and didn't just shout for House Saxon, they were yelling their loyalty for Dale too. That must have felt good. Later, back at the Saxon camp, it was official. They beat the orcs. The battle was over, and everyone was celebrating. But then Duke Alan called Dale into his tent. Uh-oh, trouble time. The Duke looked super serious and told Dale he had a question. He wanted to know why his son went running off alone to fight the orcs, and asked why he did something so crazy and dangerous. Our boy was totally confused. He just saved a dude's life, so why was he getting chewed out now? Man, being a hero is never easy. Anyway, Dale, being all polite but not backing down, told his father that he was just doing his job as the future lord. He reminded the Duke that these knights were his people, the guys he would have to lead someday. But the Duke just stared him down and called his reason weak, harsh. Dale couldn't believe it. He thought his dad cared about his knights. So, our MC gathered his guts and basically asked the Duke why he just stood there and let his own knight die. The Duke didn't sugarcoat it. He explained that, in their territory, monsters were always a threat. If the knights started thinking someone would always bail them out, they'd get soft. And being soft was a death sentence out here. The Duke hit him with a cold truth. By rushing in, Dale had put a dumb idea in the soldiers' heads. The idea that they could just wait around to be saved. He asked, did Dale really think any knight who depended on a rescue would last long out there on the battlefield? Then came the real lesson. The Duke said the family's real job was to push their knights to the limit, force them to sharpen their skills until they couldn't go any further, and only then would the Lord step in. That was the heavy responsibility of leading the Saxon house. Dale listened, and he had to admit, his old man was right. He realized he'd forgotten that sort of logic in this new life. Oof, tough lesson. Just when things were starting to feel cold and strict, the Duke softened up a bit, putting a hand on Dale's shoulder. He said he was actually impressed by his son's willpower and told him not to lose that fire. Our hero got the message, and the Duke said, let's head back to the castle. But man, news travels fast in this place. The story of Dale saving the knight started spreading like wildfire, and soon people were saying he'd killed, like, 1,000 orcs with his bare hands. Bro, the poor guy felt so embarrassed he just wanted to bury his face in a snowdrift. But it wasn't all bad. Suddenly, the whole duchy seemed more energized. A couple days later, Dale hit the training grounds and boom, there were all the knights, lined up on one knee like he was some kind of legendary general. They welcomed him with way too much respect, and Dale was seriously flustered, telling them to chill, but they weren't hearing it. Then Uncle Helmut showed up, grinning so wide you'd think he just won a prize. He told Dale to stand proud and got the knights all hyped, yelling that they'd become even stronger for their young master. Dale could only smile awkwardly, like, is this my life now? Right then, a maid came in and announced that House Orhart had arrived. Helmut straightened up, ready to take Dale to meet these important guests. Now, our boy knew this was not just any visit. House Orhart was led by Bardell, the divine sword guy from the fallen Teutonia kingdom. Big deal stuff. Dale saw that even Helmut's face changed, probably thinking about old memories with Bardell. With things feeling tense, Dale and his uncle came into the throne room, where Duke Alan and Duchess Elena were waiting. The guests were announced, a woman dressed all proper with a veiled hat, and a young blonde girl beside her. The woman introduced herself as Vanessa Orhart and gave Duke Saxon a humble greeting, then introduced her daughter, Charlotte. Well, Charlotte was not having it. She looked angry and didn't hide it. Charlotte snapped at her mom, asking why she was bowing to these people, but Vanessa tried to hush her up. The Duke stepped in, calm as ever, saying he understood Vanessa's hard times. He decided the tension needed to chill, so he asked him to show Charlotte around the castle. Dale played it cool, walked over with a polite smile, and offered Charlotte his hand. But this girl? She was totally not having it. She slapped his hand away, told him not to touch her, and left everyone in the room looking like they'd just seen a ghost. Vanessa was mortified, trying to make Charlotte apologize, but the girl just made a noise, spun around, and ran out, slamming the door behind her like a dramatic movie scene. Yikes. Vanessa was left apologizing over and over, saying her daughter had been through too much lately. Duchess Elena wanted to know what happened, and she spilled the whole story. She said Count Brandenburg, the Pig King, had been put in charge of their land. This dude was obsessed with making an heir and would go after any talented swordsman. Worst of all, Vanessa revealed that he even targeted her own daughter. She'd barely managed to escape with Charlotte before things got worse, but the trauma was still there. The Duke and Duchess looked seriously troubled. Vanessa pleaded with them to take Charlotte in as a maid, to keep her safe from that monster. Meanwhile, Dale found Charlotte out on the snowy training grounds. He called out and she turned around, still looking like she was ready to bite someone. Our MC asked if she even knew where she was going, and Charlotte shot back that she didn't care. He tried to lighten the mood, grinned and asked if her hand was okay from that slap, like, "Dude, smooth move." She said it was fine, turned away, and Dale noticed she looked like she'd been crying. Inside, he thought she was just a scared and upset kid under all that attitude. But then, bam, this girl flipped a switch. Suddenly, her eyes looked crazy determined. She drew her sword with lightning speed, pointed it at him, and told him they were going to fight. She told the young master to draw his weapon, and Dale just stood there, totally shocked. Charlotte stood there in the snow, sword at the ready, demanding a duel. Dale just smirked, telling her he needed a good reason to fight first. She said she knew about the wild story going around, about Dale, the one who supposedly wiped out 1,000 orcs by himself. Well, she was not impressed, by the way. She said she wanted to beat the undefeated hero and prove to everyone she was stronger so she could protect her house from a certain man. Dale was like, "Who?" And then Charlotte dropped the name. Count Brandenburg, the Holy Swordsman. That name hit Dale like a truck. Rage just exploded inside him, because in his past life, Brandenburg was the Empire's attack dog who betrayed and killed him. Now, our boy was fired up for real. How the fuck did that name suddenly come out of her mouth? That shit ruining his day. His brain started working overtime, and he could feel his old soldier instincts kicking in. He realized that he and Charlotte actually had the same enemy, Count Brandenburg. So, instead of just treating her like a brat, he decided to test her and maybe gain a useful ally. But first, he wanted to show her how much she still had to learn. So he accepted the duel and explained that their levels were too wide apart. With one smooth move, he strolled over to a rack of practice swords, picked up a short one, and turned back, flashing this smug, "You don't know anything" kind of smile. He told her she was just a kid who had no clue about real fighting, then dared her to come at him with everything she had. You could almost see the steam coming out of Charlotte's ears. She snapped that she was already doing that, then charged at him, her rapier suddenly glowing with this sick green aura. Honestly, it looked impressive. But the moment she swung, Dale blocked her attack with the practice sword like it was no big deal. Her blade and his clashed with heavy force. Charlotte got even more worked up, swinging again and again, but Dale just kept blocking, calm, cool, and totally in control. While they fought, he started analyzing her moves, like a real combat nerd. He could see she was actually good. Really good. She was snapping her wrist perfectly to push his counters away and using her aura to handle a rapier that was way too big for her size. The girl was basically channeling magic just to keep up. Then things got wild. They both pushed their auras, swords smashing together so hard that they slid back across the snowy ground. Dale was actually impressed now. This wasn't some spoiled noble kid, this was a real knight in training. Charlotte caught his look and grinned, thinking she had a shot. She lunged with a scary fast stab. Our boy barely managed to block it, but she kept pressing her advantage, throwing herself forward with attacks that crackled with energy. Charlotte was sure she was finally winning, but inside her head, things weren't so calm. A flash of memory hit, her mom telling her about her legendary dad, the divine sword who died before she was born. It was always just her and her mother, training day after day, even after their kingdom got crushed. Her mom taught her she had to protect their house no matter what, and that's what drove Charlotte now. But all her desperation just made her angrier, because no matter how hard she tried, Dale blocked every single move. She got this look in her eye, like she was about to snap, and charged one last time, yelling in pure frustration. But Dale didn't even flinch. One sharp counter, and bam, he knocked her rapier right out of her hands. The poor girl dropped to her knees in the snow, totally beaten, her sword sticking out of the ground a few feet away. She couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She wanted to know why she couldn't win, even after everything. Dale just told her the truth. She wasn't her father, the divine sword. He softened a little, saying her pride wasn't the problem, but she needed to face facts. If she stayed like this, there was no way she could protect her house from Brandenburg. That hit her hard. Charlotte kept crying, admitting that the holy swordsman was way, way stronger than her. She looked up at Dale, lost, and asked what she was supposed to do now. Dale crouched down looking serious and made a heavy promise. He said, as Dale of House Saxon, he swore on his family name that he would protect House Orhart. Charlotte just stared at him, totally shocked by this crazy vow. He picked up her rapier and handed it back, saying he'd keep that promise until she was strong enough to defeat Brandenburg herself. He said all of House Saxon would shield her. Charlotte, still on her knees, wanted to know why he'd make such a promise. Dale held her sword out and answered that it was because her sword was worth it. But he also gave her a condition. She had to swear to become a sword for him and for House Saxon in return. Charlotte wiped her eyes and thought about it. Then she gave this tiny, brave smile and accepted. She said she couldn't really say no to such an offer. She took her rapier, knelt in the snow, and vowed with all her heart, as a knight, to serve. It might have sounded childish, but the feeling behind it was real, a legit knight's promise, right there in the snow. Later that day, things got official in the Duke's office. Charlotte, at her mom's request, became a maid of House Saxon. Duke Alan was honestly surprised that his son just went along with everything. No complaints. He had to ask Dale what happened out there. Our hero told him straight, they made a pact, and he swore in House Saxon's name to protect House Orhart. The Duke's face turned pretty serious. He wanted to know if Dale did it out of pity. Dale shook his head and said he didn't. Instead, he explained his reasoning. He said Charlotte was the last of the Divine Sword's bloodline and had killer talent. By swearing a new oath with her, he basically brought a future powerhouse into their corner. What our MC really wanted was a new Divine Sword, loyal to their duchy. Duke Alan was honestly stunned by his son's thinking. But then he just smiled, proud as hell, and told him, "Good." Dale knew he'd nailed it. He'd just given Brandenburg a big middle finger by sheltering the last Divine Sword under his own roof. But things weren't cool everywhere. The scene jumped to Malberg, where Count Brandenburg was throwing a big tantrum in his fancy castle. The man was furious, smashing his wine glass and yelling about how Duke Saxon dared to steal Charlotte away first. His underling tried to apologize, but Brandenburg just screamed at his men for being useless. The guy explained that they'd already sent assassins, but all of them got taken out before even reaching the Saxon lands. Probably Charlotte herself fought some of them off. Hearing that, Brandenburg was disgusted. He stomped over to a shiny sword on display, touching it like a creep and remembering the good times, aka the time he killed Hansung. Gross. He picked up the holy sword Hansung used, Durandal, and started talking to it like it was his girlfriend. He called Charlotte his lovely fiancée, and told the sword to wait just a bit longer. Then, just to make everyone uncomfortable, he licked the blade and promised he'd get the perfect heir, no matter what it took. He turned back to his underling with a nasty grin, ordered him to pay the Thieves Guild whatever they wanted, and told him to bring back Charlotte, no matter what. So yeah, the game was officially on. A week flew by after Charlotte gave her big knight's oath. The poor girl barely had a second to breathe. 1 minute she was the last princess, the next she was struggling hard to be a ducal maid. But she didn't complain. She trained even harder. And now, sparring with our MC every day was just part of her new life. Lucky her, right? Out on the training grounds, Uncle Helmut was all business. He checked if the kids were ready. Dale just grinned and said, obviously, he was born ready. Charlotte let out a determined grunt that basically meant the same thing. Helmut gave them the go-ahead with this sneaky little smile. And boom, the match was on. These two didn't mess around. Their swords smashed together right away. Dale was flexing with his 2 short swords, moving fast and cocky, but Charlotte matched him for every blow. Was this even a kid's duel anymore? Helmut just watched, pretending to be chill, but in his head, he was wondering if maybe these two needed a warning label. Sure, they weren't real knights yet, but the way they moved, so sharp and so intense, was straight up impressive. Sparks flew, and for a second, it was hard to tell who was winning. Then, out of nowhere, our hero pulled a classic trick. He swept his cloak over his sword, hiding it, and when Charlotte blinked, he went for the sneak attack. That got her heated. She looked ready to explode. But before she could do something wild, Helmut just popped up between them and caught her wrist, stopping her blade right before it became dangerous. Helmut was calm as ever. He told them they did great. Charlotte just scowled, not buying it. She asked what she was missing. Helmut hit her with the teacher voice, asking if she really knew what a rapier was for. She said it was all about thrusting. Yet Helmut shut that down fast. He explained that the real trick was footwork. He broke down her last mistake. Dale dodged her attack and closed in. But instead of backing off to get space, she just kept pushing forward. Bad move. He also pointed out that the more she bent and stretched her arm, the more her rapier wobbled, so her aim was off. In the end, he told her the brutal truth. She needed to relearn her basics, all of them. Hearing that, she looked like he had just stepped on her dreams. Charlotte was ticked off and tried to argue, saying she never had a real teacher. Helmut just grinned. That's what he was for now, and he'd fix her weird sword style. That made Charlotte even madder, and she yelled while Dale tried to keep the peace. Helmut only laughed harder, teasing that she was too cute when she got mad. Classic uncle move. While those two argued, our MC just stood there thinking how much potential Charlotte actually had. He figured with Helmut training her, she would probably level up even faster, maybe even catch up to him soon. So now, he knew he couldn't slack off either. Later, it was magic time. Our boy was working on building his mana circles, usually a nightmare that took other mages forever, but of course, our protagonist was already smashing records. Sophia just looked at him like he was a legendary unicorn and asked if he really finished his second circle already. Dale confirmed it, trying not to sound too smug. In this world, a mage's mana circle is measured in RPM, rotation per minute of mana flow. For most people, one circle went about 300 revolutions per minute. But Dale's first one? A wild 2,000 revolutions per minute. The second was already at 400. He was basically ready to build a third, and Sophia looked like she might faint. Dale then decided to try his magic and upgrade his ice bullet spell. He made it heavier and harder by focusing the magic tighter, then shaped the mana like a gun barrel to spin it faster and shoot it harder. He aimed at a tree and fired his brand new ice bullet armor-piercing bullet. What happened next? Total mayhem. The tree exploded, ice and bark flying everywhere, and there was a crater big enough to hide a horse in. Sophia stared at the mess, totally speechless. Dale just thought, wow, that new circle really powered things up. Sophia finally snapped out of it, looking all proud, and said he learned way too fast. Dale admitted it was all thanks to her, which made her stop and stare. She started thinking about all the crazy stuff he'd done, saving knights, helping Charlotte, and always using his strength for good. She said, honestly, he scared her sometimes, but she trusted him even more. Then, out of nowhere, she just hauled him into a big, proud hug. Our boy totally panicked. Inside, his grown man brain was like, what the hell is happening? He was blushing like mad, but Sophia just held on, calling him her proud student. Someone get this kid a manual for how to handle hugs, because he was not ready. Our boy was basically single in his previous life. Next morning, he was out in the courtyard, still totally thrown by that hug. He wondered if Sophia just saw him as a kid, but he shook it off. No time for drama, time for training. He summoned a giant spiky ice wall and tried a new spell idea. An ice bullet that would act like a shotgun, blasting out a bunch of shards. He fired. The bullet shattered into icy pellets, and they slammed the wall, then bounced right back at him. Our boy was cool as ice, just raised a magic shield to block them all, then made a note to try turning it into a slug next time, always thinking ahead. Suddenly, someone called his name. It was Charlotte, coming out from the trees. Dale asked if she was training, and she said, yeah. She was practicing the new footwork Helmet taught her. Our boy noticed she actually seemed happy about the sword lessons, which surprised her for a second, but then she agreed. Charlotte got quiet for a bit, looked a little nervous, then blurted out an apology for acting like a brat before. Dale did not go easy. He agreed she'd been rude, which made her freeze like a statue. But then he broke into a huge grin and said he'd forgive her this time. Just don't make it a habit. Charlotte looked almost dizzy with relief and promised she'd relax a little. They stood there in the snow, just enjoying the calm. She said she loved the weather here, because it let her train all day without a sweat, and the cool air helped her focus. Dale listened, thinking that was definitely why he liked this place too, and smiled. For once, they both just stood there, not fighting, not arguing, just quietly happy. From the castle window, Duke Alan and Duchess Elena watched their son and Charlotte together. The Duke pointed out how much Dale had grown, and Elena agreed, saying the two of them looked perfect out there. She said it was a mother's job to help her son figure his feelings out, and the two parents smiled, making plans to keep an eye on their little hero. The next day, we are now in the slums. It turns out our MC's mom, Elena, is basically a saint down here. Every year, she brings food, clothes, and even helps the homeless find jobs. This year, she's got a couple of new assistants, our boy Dale and his knight-in-training sidekick Charlotte. So here they are, handing out bread and blankets, when a wild little boy shows up, running straight for Charlotte. The kid is shaking, crying, and begging for help. He says his mom is dying and only Charlotte can save her. Charlotte, being soft-hearted and maybe a little too trusting, agrees right away. Honestly, our MC should have known this was a trap from the first second, but he follows anyway. This gonna be fun. Dale sticks close as the kid leads them deeper and deeper into this maze of sketchy alleyways. He's got his eyes open, watching for trouble. This is definitely a trap. Why would this kid pick Charlotte, a child, for help when there are tons of adults around? Good question, right? Then he spots a hooded dude hanging out on a rooftop and recognizes him instantly. Thieves Guild. Straight off Brandenburg's payroll. Seriously, how obvious can you get? They finally stop in a dead-end alley. The boy suddenly gets real nervous and says he'll go get his mom. Yeah, right, bro. As soon as the kid dips, a bunch of creeps pop out of the shadows, weapons drawn, faces hidden. Their leader, this green-haired dude, saunters up with a fake smile and starts running his mouth, asking why two rich kids are hanging around this dump. He says they only want Charlotte and tells Dale to get lost. Ha! As if our hero would just walk away. Dale steps up, cool as ice, and stands in front of Charlotte. He gives his classic "I made a promise" speech, calling himself Dale of Saxon and swearing to protect the daughter of House Orhart. The green-haired guy just laughs and tells Dale he's about to have a really bad day for being so cocky. The thugs pull out their daggers, looking ready to start some trouble. Charlotte leans in, whispering that she left her sword behind. Our boy doesn't even flinch. He just sits down like it's lunch break and tells her to chill. In his head, he's actually excited. He wants to try out a new shadow trick he cooked up after leveling up his magic. The thugs jump down from above, and suddenly, boom, a tornado of purple shadow energy whips out from under Dale's cloak. That freaks the thugs out, and the green-haired boss starts yelling at his guys to dodge. For a criminal, he's actually got good instincts. Dale makes a mental note. This guy must be a big deal in the Thieves Guild. Not all the thugs are fast enough, though. One unlucky guy gets caught by the swirling shadows. Dale, all scientific, takes a second to explain this is his new move, planting shadow parasites in the wind so his enemies get wrecked from the inside. Sure enough, a huge fanged shadow jumps out and dives into the thug. The poor dude screams like hell as he's torn apart by the dark magic. Super gross. The rest of the thugs are losing their minds, and it's about to get so much worse. Dale's shadows snap together and turn into this giant, buff undead monster with glowing purple eyes and claws that could slice a horse. It howls, hungry for flesh, and the thugs look like they want to run home to mommy. One guy whispers it's undead, and they all start shaking. But the boss isn't done yet. He shouts at his men to attack. Not that they're excited about it. The boss, getting annoyed, decides to do it himself. He jumps into the fight, pulling off some flashy illusion magic. Now there's a bunch of fake hymns all over the alley. He whips out a handful of shiny green daggers and throws them, thinking Dale's done for. But our MC has other plans. The shadows around him snap into a shield and block every single dagger like it's nothing. The boss curses, his secret move just got clowned on by a little kid. Ouch. The boss tries to bounce back, but Dale's not giving him any space. With a flash of blue light, a magic circle pops up under Dale's foot. He fires off his new spell, double-barrel 12-gauge buckshot. Suddenly, a wall of icy bullets blasts the boss out of the air and straight into the concrete. That had to hurt. Charlotte, meanwhile, is hiding behind a corner, probably wondering if she should be scared of the thugs or of Dale. The alley looks like a monster movie now, bodies everywhere, and Dale's undead shadow beast is chowing down on some poor assassin. But the boss, because of course he's too tough to die from just one hit, drags himself up, coughing blood. He spits out that the fight's not over. Dale isn't impressed. He just unleashes the full rage of his shadow cloak. In a flash, dark tendrils whip out, slicing through every last thug. The undead monster grabs another guy and finishes him off with a roar. These criminals picked the wrong kids to mess with. When the dust settles, our boy checks on Charlotte, who's sitting nearby totally shaken. He asks if she's okay, being way more chill than anyone else would be. Charlotte says she's fine, even if her face says otherwise. Just then, one last assassin tries to run for it, screaming like a banshee. Dale doesn't blink. He forms an ice bullet at his foot and shoots it right through the guy's leg, taking him down easy. The undead monster hauls the bleeding dude back. The survivor starts begging for his life, swearing to spill all his secrets. Dale stays cool, asking if he really means everything. The man nods like crazy, probably thinking there's hope. But our MC? He's not interested in hearing another word from this loser. He points, fires off one last ice bullet straight through the guy's head, and says he doesn't really care. Cold. So, lesson learned for the Thieves Guild. Never mess with Dale of Saxon. The slums aren't so safe for villains anymore. Dale then looked at Charlotte and told her straight up that this was what the Duchy of Saxon was really like. Dangerous, scary, but also the power that would keep her safe. He asked if she was afraid. Charlotte admitted, yeah, she was a little scared, but it was fine because he did it for her. She repeated that vow she liked so much. If his family would be her shield, she would be his sword. She thanked him for showing her a real future and promised she would get stronger. Our hero just watched her for a moment, thinking about Sir Bardell, the knight he killed in his old life, Charlotte's father. Maybe that's why he let Charlotte in, to have someone to protect this time. But her promise hit him harder than he expected. She wasn't just talking big. She was giving him a purpose. Meanwhile, things were not chill back at Count Brandenburg's castle. The guy was fuming as he read a letter. It was a formal invite to Saxon Castle. Basically a "get your butt over here" from the Black Duke himself about that little kidnapping stunt. Brandenburg knew he couldn't just ignore it, even if he was the Empire's holy sword. So, a few days later he showed up at Saxon Castle, probably already annoyed. Inside the Grand Hall, the Duke was sitting on his throne, looking like a boss, with Dale right next to him. The Duke welcomed Brandenburg, who replied with some sarcastic nonsense about how nothing was more important than getting summoned. He was all smiles on the outside, but in his head, he was calling Dale and Charlotte sneaky little brats. The Duke got straight to the point, saying the whole empire was super concerned about the kidnapping attempt. He hinted that everyone knew why Brandenburg was there, basically daring him to admit something. Brandenburg tried to play innocent, acting like he could never get mixed up in something so low. That's when the air in the hall changed. A thick, dark aura spread out from the Duke and filled the place. Brandenburg's guys started freaking out, asking why there was wind inside. The Saxon shadows surrounded them, and the knights totally lost it, screaming as the darkness swallowed them up. Brandenburg realized his own holy knight order was getting wiped out in seconds, just pure dark magic flecks from the Duke. He also recognized the spell. Tempest of Nile, a seriously nasty piece of advanced dark magic. The Duke ordered him to kneel and stay put. Brandenburg, super pissed, tried to argue, but the Duke just shut him down, telling him that he better listen or things would get a whole lot worse. Brandenburg had no choice but to kneel, feeling more humiliated than ever before. Still, on his throne, the Duke reminded everyone that this meeting was for peace, but then made it clear that if any harm came to the Saxon kids again, he would personally wipe out every last Brandenburg. He finished with a sarcastic offer for him to listen carefully. Brandenburg, still fuming, said thanks for the generosity, but made it clear he wasn't sticking around. The Duke didn't care and told him to leave. Our boy Dale watched all this go down, and realized this scene, Count Brandenburg, kneeling to the Black Duke, was about to set the empire on fire. It began as the smallest fire, but he knew their family was now locked in a fight to take down the so-called the Hilo swordsman for good. When the rumors of Brandenburg's public humiliation started flying, the Duke was chilling in his office with Sophia. On the floor were the bodies of the thieves Dale took care of in the slums. Sophia stared at the mess and wondered if she'd made a mistake teaching Dale. The Duke explained that they needed her wisdom even more now and offered her the job of chief advisor to House Saxon. Sophia was shocked. This was basically asking her to join the family. The Duke said straight up that Dale needed her, and even he couldn't guide him alone. Sophia agreed, finally realizing her real job was to figure out how Dale saw the world, because that mattered more than ever. Time moved on, and soon enough, Dale's 10th birthday rolled around. The party was packed, but this time a bunch of big shots from the Emperor's crew were there too. One of them, Marquis Eurus, came over and greeted Dale with all the fake politeness you'd expect. The other guests stuffed their faces and clapped about how great the Duke was. But Dale saw right through it. These were the important nobles from the imperial capital, and their presence was just the Empire's way of warning House Saxon not to get too cocky after embarrassing Brandenburg. Marquis Eurus, who introduced himself as the Crimson Lord, checked Dale out and talked about how the whole empire was buzzing about the boy genius who'd wiped out orcs at just 9 years old. Looking at this red man, our boy knew that the Crimson Tower was infamous for obsession with the strong being the righteous bullshit. So they never hesitated to do anything shady for power. That man is the one often doing experiments with his previous body. Now Dale kept it polite, wished him a good party, and mentally groaned. He then walked out. Birthdays like this? So boring. He'd rather be training with Charlotte, but she was now an official lady in waiting for her mother, so sword practice in public was a no-go. And letting the Empire see the sword god's daughter swinging a blade? Yeah, not smart. Suddenly, there was a scream. A man's angry voice ordering a maid to stay put. Dale followed the noise and found a fat dude named Pro threatening a terrified maid named Eve, who begged him to stop, reminding him she served House Saxon. Pro just laughed, saying a maid had no right to speak the Duke's name, and ranted about how he'd rather have fun with a girl than waste his time at the party. He even waved a knife at her, getting all gross. Dale, not impressed, demanded to know what Pro was doing. Pro, ever the creep, tried to play it cool and even asked Dale if he'd ever had a girl before, saying he could teach him. Meanwhile, he kept holding Eve at knife point. Dale just ignored the guy's garbage, told Eve not to be afraid, and thought to himself that Pro clearly didn't get how dangerous this was. Nobles in this society thought they could get away with anything, especially at a party like this. But Dale wasn't here to play along. He cast a new ice spell and blasted Pro, knocking him down. Right then, he realized attacking a guest of the Emperor was probably not the best move, but honestly, did this punk deserve anything less? Pro scrambled back up, looking angry. But Dale just glared right through him and ordered him to kneel and apologize to Eve, making it very clear that she was a person of House Saxon. Let's just say, the days of messing with the Saxons were officially over. Anyway, Pro started running his mouth, reminding everyone that he was a guest sent by the Emperor and that disrespecting him just to protect some lowly maid was basically a crime against the Empire. But our MC was not having it. He cut the guy off with a smirk, saying something wild. He wondered if the Emperor liked sending rapists as his hobby, because that's what Pro looked like. Bro, that line made the whole room freeze. Pro was so shocked he could barely talk and started yelling about how Dale must be crazy to say something like that. That was when things got really interesting, because the doors opened up and the rest of the party rolled in. Duke Allen, Marquis Eurus, and a bunch of other high-class nobles. Eurus just smiled, saying this was some spicy entertainment. The Duke looked at his son and asked what the hell was going on here. Dale told it straight. Pro had just tried to assault one of House Saxon's maids. Some random noble tried to tease Dale, acting like he shouldn't get so mad over something so trivial. Pro, seeing his chance, jumped in and started whining to the Duke, but Dale shut him down hard, telling Pro to stay on his knees. He turned to the crowd and explained that, yeah, capital nobles represent the emperor, but this guy tried to ruin that reputation by attacking a maid, so there was no way he could let it slide. Eurus actually laughed and said Dale's logic was perfect. He told his own attendant, Lara, to do something about this insect. Suddenly, Pro started screaming for help, but it was too late. Eurus dropped a fat fire spell on him right there in front of everyone. Pro howled as he burned, and nobody did a damn thing to help. Eurus, looking totally chill, said Dale was right. Anyone who insulted the Empire deserved to be roasted like a bug. He then just clapped, telling everyone that he now had even higher hopes for young Dale. After that mess, the Emperor's people cleared out and peace came back to the castle. Not gonna lie, that was insane. Dale just set a whole new level for what counted as party drama. Next morning, our hero was trying to get some sleep, but Eve, the maid he saved, came to wake him up. She seemed nervous, so Dale thanked her for waking him up and asked if there was something on her mind. Eve, blushing a little, told him she was proud to serve him. Dale thought it was kind of weird. After all this time in this world, he still wasn't used to people respecting him like that. He could feel the crazy responsibility of the Saxon name pressing down on him, and he reminded himself he'd use that power for one thing: taking down the damn Empire. Later, the Duke called for him in his office. He said Dale had been acting strange lately and wanted to know what was up, but our MC flipped the script and asked the Duke if he knew the Empire would have targeted House Saxon next if the otherworldly hero hadn't died the way he did. That question really shocked the Duke, who wanted to know where he got that idea. Dale thought about just telling him the truth, that he'd heard it all in his past life, but nope, the risk is so big. So, instead, he said it was just something he'd figured out. He explained that the Empire got rid of the hero because a hunting dog that gets too strong is always a problem. Even after the hero beat the Demon King, the Empire didn't bother fixing the Demon King's lands. They made the Saxons clean it up, bleeding them dry. So, just like they threw away the hero, Dale figured the Empire would try to wipe out House Saxon too. The Duke was honestly amazed and wanted to know how his son knew the hero was disposed of. Dale just shrugged and said it was a guess, since the official story about the hero's honorable death made no sense and was clearly a lie. He added that if he was right, then the Empire's so-called justice was nothing but pure tyranny. Now, the Duke was staring at his son like he was some kind of ancient sage and asked what House Saxon should do. Dale didn't even blink. He told him flat out, they needed to destroy the Empire. The Duke was stunned and told Dale to watch his mouth, but our boy said he wasn't talking about open rebellion right now. He had a plan. In 10 years, when the time was right, they'd act. For now, there were resistance groups out there and a lot of scared lords. The Empire's economy was a mess. Bandits were everywhere, and war wounds weren't healing. He said if they helped the resistance and built up their own strength, they'd be ready when the real chance came. Dale kept explaining his strategy until the sun went down, then asked his dad what he thought. The Duke just laughed, saying his son was a straight-up monster genius, and from now on he'd treat Dale not as a kid, but as the future head of House Saxon. Boom, there it was. This was the moment our MC had been waiting for. Power, respect, and the right to make real moves. The Duke asked what Dale wanted for their family. Dale grinned and said if he was going to be treated as an equal, he wanted to join the Tower Trial in Necropolis. The Duke almost fell out of his chair, reminding him that the place was super deadly and Dale hadn't even finished the third circle yet. Our protagonist just shrugged, saying he'd reach it soon. The Duke pointed out that most people didn't hit the third circle until their 20s, but Dale stood his ground. He said this trial would prove his strength and make his dad look even better. Plus, it would give House Saxon a legit reputation. The Duke agreed, telling Dale it was his call. A few days later, they rolled up to Necropolis and, not gonna lie, Dale was already tired from all the excitement. The locals started gossiping as soon as they saw him. Some were curious if the rumors about Dale being a genius were real, while others just thought he looked kind of pathetic. Some kid named Felix, apparently the best student around, boasted that he would win, not the so-called duchy brat. Dale and the Duke made it to the Magic Tower, where they were greeted by Iris, one of the Tower Elders, and the Secretary General. The Duke told Dale that Iris would be looking after him during the trial, so she led him into this huge hall with a bunch of other graduates, 59 inches total. Iris welcomed everyone and explained the first test. A straight-up battle royale for life points. Every kid had a pendant with 1 life point and a shield, and if you got hit by a corpse weapon, your pendant broke, and you were out. Steal 3 points and you cleared the first floor. Artifacts? Not allowed. Our MC just grinned inside. Finally. Time to show everyone what a duchy brat could really do. People also began to whisper. They were calling Dale a monster for reaching the 3rd circle so young, and honestly, our guy kinda loved the attention. Felix, that cocky kid, tried to play leader and told everyone they should team up to take Dale down. Some were a bit scared about attacking the young lord, you know, not wanting to end up cursed or whatever, but Felix just brushed it off, saying that here everyone was equal. Dale overheard all this and was basically thinking, wow, these kids are pretty confident, but they had no idea who they were messing with. Iris, the supervisor, announced the start, and all the contestants got busy showing off, raising undead soldiers like it was some edgy puppet show. Felix instantly sent his zombie soldier charging straight at our hero, thinking it would be easy. But nope, Dale's own undead soldier blocked the hit like it was nothing. Felix's jaw dropped when he noticed something weird. Dale's soldier was freezing up, literally, then shattered his undead into pieces. He started freaking out, yelling that Dale was cheating by using water magic. But our boy stayed cool. He asked Iris, real smooth, if there was any rule that said undead could only be pumped up with dark magic. Iris just stood there, saying nothing. So Dale decided that meant he hadn't broken any rules. Now Felix was desperate, ordering his squad to stall Dale's ice-powered zombie while the rest went after Dale himself. Dale, thinking that he couldn't use artifacts, decided to go old school. He dodged around the attacking undead, swiped a sword, and started wrecking everyone. He even punched one of the undead with dark magic, then chopped up another like it was practice. Somebody in the crowd was just staring, totally shocked that their zombie got taken out so easily. Felix was convinced Dale's sword must be enchanted, but Iris explained to everyone that Dale had actually just changed the bone structure to make the sword super tough. Then our hero leapt high into the air and slammed his sword down on another undead, ending its sad little existence. Felix was left with 0 soldiers, and he was so stunned he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He started to question if it was even normal for a mage to be this good with a sword. Dale walked up to Felix, who was now begging for his life, but our MC just laughed, reminding him that the pendant would keep him safe from dying. Then he swung and shattered Felix's pendant, knocking him out of the trial. Felix called him a monster, but at that point, everyone else in the room knew it was true. Iris stepped forward and announced that Lord Dale was the only survivor, holding every single life point, 60 in total. Dale just thought to himself that this was only the beginning. Necropolis would be his first step on the road to revenge. Next, he moved on to the 2nd floor of the trial, where the game got real. This round was all about taking down a flesh golem, which usually needed a whole team, but Dale had already wiped out all the possible allies on the 1st floor. The rules here let you use any kind of magic, so our boy figured it was the perfect time to push himself and reach the 3rd circle. The golem came at him swinging, but he slipped past its attack and sliced its arm, grinning like this was just another day at the gym. He unleashed a new spell, Accelerated Decay, and suddenly, the golem's body started corroding fast. Iris, the ever-watchful judge, noticed right away that Dale's magic wasn't normal at all. She wondered why he didn't just chop the golem apart, but Dale was thinking bigger. He remembered from his past life that biochemical warfare was the real game-changer. Now, he was using black magic to basically do the same thing, and honestly, nobody else in the room even realized how crazy that was. He kept crushing the golem and set a new record by reaching the 10th floor, and got 4 days off as a reward. The other 59 kids? They got a rare second chance, probably just so they wouldn't all cry home to their parents. After all, there was never a case where everyone got destroyed by one person. Later that night, Dale was chilling alone by a fountain. That's when Sophia appeared, congratulating him on smashing the competition. Our protagonist thanked her, saying it was all thanks to her training. Then, out of nowhere, our boy asked her to go to the festival with him, as a date. Sophia said yes, but she was thinking it was just a kid being cute. Oh, poor Dale got teacher zoned. At the festival, Dale tried to keep the conversation going, but small talk was not his thing. He admired the moon, but it was that quiet moment with Sophia that hit him. He realized she was the only person who ever lit up his lonely world. He remembered how, when he pushed to the 3rd circle and hit that mental wall, he found himself in a strange, empty place. Just emptiness. Except for Sophia, who was always there with her trust. And now, Dale looked at her and decided to just say it. He told Sophia he loved her. Oh boy, the story is moving too fast. She was stunned and asked what he meant, so he said it again, clear as day. Sophia smiled and hugged him, saying she was also very fond of him. Damn. We all know she just thought that Dale was a kid, saying they love their mom. But a few days later, before the next trial, Dale was pretty sure nothing had changed. He figured Sophia just saw it as a little boy's crush and nothing more. The hell? He would just focus on the next mission then. On the day of the 11th floor trial, Iris explained the rules. This one was a head-to-head magic fight. Dale's opponent was a guy named Elbert Rosenheim, a serious third circle master who told Dale he wouldn't go easy on him just because he was a kid. Dale understood the deal. This time, all magic and artifacts were allowed, and the pendant didn't really protect you anymore. It was about to get dangerous. Elbert was full of himself, warning Dale that this was the end of the line for him. He started things off dirty, firing a volley of dark arrows before the match even officially began. Dale dodged everything easily, but he was annoyed that the judges didn't care about Elbert's cheating, they just wanted to see what he could do. Elbert went all out, summoning a squad of creepy dark creatures, yelling at them to bow down and obey him forever. Our boy thought it was actually embarrassing how dramatic the guy was, but he had to admit Elbert was better than those first-level newbies from before. As Elbert kept sending attacks, Dale stayed cool, dodging every blow. This only made Elbert angrier, and he demanded to know how much longer Dale was going to run. Elbert said Dale could never win just by dodging, then tried to end things by ordering his undead to blow itself up, claiming victory was his. Well, Elbert was about to learn that our boy Dale wasn't running away, he was just waiting to end this on his own terms and just playing around. Elbert was still busy showing off his dark magic, but suddenly he looked around and realized Dale had just vanished. The guy was straight up confused, wondering how and when our MC disappeared. But then, bam, Dale showed up right behind him, cool as ever, making fun of him for needing to cheat against a kid. That one stung, bro. Dale even admitted Elbert's little sneak attack was smart, but then flexed a bit, saying he used spectral form, a skill from his shadow cloak. He made it clear Elbert was nowhere near beating him. That's when it got creepy. Dale's shadow creatures started humming and groaning about how hungry they were. They literally asked if they could eat Elbert. Dale just grinned and told them to go for it, but not to overdo it. Dude, those shadows swarmed Elbert, and the guy started screaming like he was in a horror movie. Dale joked that maybe the shadows were a little too excited because they hadn't eaten in a while. Elbert broke down, begging for mercy, so our boy called off his shadows. The enemy hit the ground, totally knocked out, and Iris wasted no time declaring Dale the winner of round 1. Dale didn't even care. He just asked who was up next for round 2. But the next mage took one look at Dale and immediately gave up, saying he just wanted to live. Can you blame him? The matches kept rolling, and every single contestant forfeited before even fighting, except for one poor soul who actually did step up and, of course, got destroyed. This meant our boy Dale just advanced higher and higher, all the way up, refining his 3 magic circles and smashing every floor guardian on the way. By the time he got to the 20th floor, it looked like things would finally get interesting. The guardian here was no joke. It was the Headless Knight, a monster built personally by a Black Tower elder. Even the spectators were whispering that maybe this was finally Dale's limit. Did our MC get nervous? Not a chance. He just smiled, thinking it'd be boring if everything went too smoothly. The battle started, and the Headless Knight charged. But suddenly, the entire crowd went dead silent. The knight, instead of brawling, dropped to one knee and basically bowed to Dale. Our MC just ordered the knight to finish itself, and the Headless Knight didn't hesitate, stabbed itself right there and collapsed. Everyone was shocked. Like, what the hell just happened? Dale realized he might have flexed a little too hard. Even he thought it was pretty insane that a guardian would betray its creator and choose him instead. That was a level only Black Tower elders usually reached, and now everyone knew Dale was on that level already, which he definitely hadn't planned to show off. He figured he'd done enough. No need to keep showing off or risk going so far that he turned into some unstoppable monster nobody could understand. So, my dude just turned around and left, not caring about finishing every last floor. The observers tried to ask him why he was leaving, but Dale knew there was a line, and he was not about to cross it. He wanted to stay human, not become the next boogeyman. And just like that, Dale's trial was over, and with it, the whole tower trial ended. When Dale and his dad, the Duke, arrived, the entire Black Tower basically lost their minds. Every mage, even the High Elders, lined up to salute the Duke and his son. The news of what Dale did brought the whole northern region together behind House Saxon. They began to unite. In the duchy, the knights were fired up, fighting harder than ever and cheering for their young Lord Dale. In the entire empire, from that day on, no one doubted him. After crushing the tower trial, Dale got a new assignment straight from the Duke: lead a real campaign against a horde of orcs. Sounds insane for a 10-year-old, right? But nobody even blinked. They all trusted him to lead. Of course, he took the job and ran with it, slowly becoming a true commander. Later, Dale reported back to his father. He said they'd wiped out 145 orcs. The Duke wanted to know if there were any losses. So, he told him 3 knights got hurt, but nothing serious. The Duke asked if he'd used magic to keep everyone safe, and Dale gave all the credit to the swords of House Saxon, not his own spells. The Duke was pretty damn proud. Sir Helmut, always the supportive uncle, told the Duke that Dale was already leading regiments like a pro. Dale, being humble for once, said it was all thanks to his uncle teaching. Helmut didn't buy it. He said Dale learned sword fighting, strategy, tactics, and war itself from him, and at this rate, it wouldn't be long before Dale was leading his own territory in a domain war. Our boy just grinned, always up for a new challenge. Next, we see Dale and Charlotte throwing down in another sparring match. Charlotte yelled as she charged, and they traded blows so fast it was hard to follow. When Dale ended the session, he said Charlotte was getting a little better. Charlotte snapped back, annoyed that he sounded so detached. She knew she couldn't be compared with him. She then complained that ever since he became a third circle mage and passed the 20th floor, all she heard was endless praise for young Lord Dale, and she wondered if he ever got tired of it. Dale told her not to worry, promising she would get stronger too. In his head, he thought Charlotte's talent was wild, especially for a 10-year-old. But Charlotte got triggered, yelling at him not to treat her like a child. Our protagonist just shot back that she was a kid, so of course he'd treat her like one. She fired right back, saying he was a kid too. Dale only smiled and said he was already an adult, because, you know, his past life and all that. But still, he was still mini in everyone's eyes. After that, Sir Helmut started a new lesson for him. He explained they'd be learning the hammer and anvil tactic, a move where cavalry smashes the enemy's side while infantry blocks the enemy's reinforcements. That's the secret sauce, he said. Dale figured out that the tactic only worked because the black cavalry was so OP. He thought to himself that war was pretty much the same everywhere, no matter what world you were in. Helmut asked about Charlotte's training next. Dale said she was doing great, but honestly, her skill still couldn't compare to his. He explained that her sword skills had a solid base now, and soon she'd start learning aura techniques and the Saxon sword style. But there was one problem. Helmut already knew what Dale was thinking. Charlotte's sword style didn't really match the Saxon family's heavy power style. Well, mages used magic circles to shape their power, but knights could also refine their mana and store it as aura by training hard. Just like mages had towers for passing on their magic, knights had orders to keep their sword styles alive. The Black Cavalry, from the Knight Raven Order in the north, used a style based on sheer power. The problem was, Charlotte's style was all about speed and agility. With her skills, if she used Saxon swordsmanship, maybe she could reach the top 7 swords. But without the right technique, she would never be number 1. Not like her father, who used to be called the First Sword. To be honest, Helmut was sad that this special style vanished when the Night Kingdom fell. Our boy's face darkened. If only the Sword of Blossom technique were still alive, and wondered if it had really disappeared for real. After that, while Dale was grinding away, crushing monsters and working through crazy training, it was finally time for all that effort to pay off. One day, the Duke got some news from a messenger that left him looking totally shaken. The messenger said that Baron Voker, their neighbor, was claiming the Duke's copper mine and had asked for a domain war. Dale thought it was nuts for a lowly baron to challenge a duke like this. But then the messenger revealed the real reason. The Brandenburg was backing the baron and sending his St. Magdalena order to help, all to get a cut of the mine's profit for Saxon Duchy. Hearing that, our boy knew right away that this was payback for humiliating Brandenburg before. The guy never forgot a grudge, and now he was out for revenge. Ever since Duke Alan stomped all over Brandenburg's pride, the Count was itching for a comeback, but of course, he didn't have the guts to start a big war out in the open. Instead, he decided to stir up trouble in a border zone so no one could blame him directly. RMC was ready, let the domain war begin. He would crush that damned pervert so hard this time. Anyway, Dale walked up to his dad and said he wanted to lead the knights himself in this battle. But Duke Alan wasn't having it. He told our protagonist that he was still too young to take on a war against people, not just monsters, and should stop talking wild. The Duke said he'd protect Baron Greenbelt's mine himself, so Baron Greenbelt, who was kneeling right there, was shaking and mumbling his thanks. Dale watched all this and felt like smashing something. He knew he could handle it, but his dad just wouldn't listen. Looking super salty, our hero stormed out. That's when Uncle Helmut stopped him and tried to cheer him up, saying the Duke must have his reasons. He then pulled out a game board that looked a lot like chess, except it had a different name here. He said they should play it together since it was basically a mini war game and would help Dale get even better at strategy. That's when the light bulb went off for Dale. He realized maybe he could convince the Duke by beating him at his own game. Without even saying anything, he took the board and bolted back toward his dad's study, leaving Helmut like, "Dude, what the hell just happened?" Dale barged into the study and laid out his plan. If he could beat his father at this war game, he wanted permission to command the battle for real. The Duke looked at him like, "Are you serious right now?" But Dale stood firm, saying that war wasn't just about strength but about brains too, so this match would show if he deserved the chance. Helmut apologized for the trouble, but the Duke waved him off and agreed to the deal. If Dale won, he'd get command. But if he lost, he'd drop the idea for good. So, the match started. Dale moved his pieces with total confidence. And even though the Duke gave him all the advantages, more troops, better terrain, our MC still wiped the floor with him. 2 out of 3 games, Dale walked away the winner. Helmut nearly lost his mind watching it. Dale respectfully asked if his dad would keep his promise. Duke Allen was like, "Since when did you know this game?" Anyway, Dale just lied straight-faced, saying he found the rulebook in the library years ago and learned it by himself. Yeah, right. Our protagonist was a pro at this from his past life, but no one needed to know that. The Duke just shook his head and honored the deal. He officially put Dale in charge of the knights for the upcoming fight. But he made it clear, lose, and their family's honor would be toast, so defeat was not an option. Before sending him off, Duke Allen got real serious. He asked if Dale could really handle all this responsibility alone. Our boy answered with a huge, bright grin, telling his dad to trust him and that he'd prove himself. The Duke smiled back, finally trusting the kid to show everyone what he was made of. Meanwhile, over in Brandenburg's stronghold, things were a mess. Count Brandenburg was blowing his lid, yelling at his son Philip for messing around in the slums while Dale was out here getting ready to lead a real army. Philip, thinking he was hot stuff, asked to be allowed to crush the Saxon kid with the knights. The only thing he crushed was his dad's patience. If I have a son like this, I'm gonna kick him so hard. Brandenburg made it crystal clear that Dale was no ordinary kid, he was a monster, and Philip couldn't even dream of catching up to him in 100 years. Still, the Count said he'd let Philip be commander for the battle, but then turned around and told Sir Milvus, the real knight in charge, to treat Philip as nothing more than a pretty mascot. Ouch! Philip freaked, but the old man didn't care. He just wanted a figurehead. The Count was fuming inside, thinking he should have handled things himself but couldn't go all out against a child without looking like a total loser. He started to wonder if Duke Allen had planned all this just to mess with him. Finally, after all the hype, a few days later at Baron Greenbelt's territory, the big moment arrived. The Baron was sweating bullets, but he came out with his knights to greet Dale, who rolled up on his horse looking way too chill for a 10-year-old. The Baron and his men bowed deep, showing respect, but some of his soldiers were whispering in the back, wondering if this kid could even hold a sword. Another guy hushed him, saying Dale was a prodigy, so relax. Baron Greenbelt tried to be friendly and invited Dale to a fancy banquet, but our MC wasn't there to eat snacks. He shut him down real quick, saying they didn't have time for parties. The Baron was so confused, asking what he meant, but before he could even finish, Dale whipped out his sword and pointed it straight at the Baron's throat. The poor man almost fainted. Dale, with a sharp grin, told the Baron he wanted to check the quality of his men first. He wanted to know who was the strongest among them. Our boy wasn't playing around. He was here to win, and nothing was going to slow him down. Anyway, Dale was calm as ever, just smiling and asking the dude, for the last time, who was actually the strongest knight in this place. That's when a red-haired knight named Harbuck stepped forward, acting all proud. He told Dale that he was number 1, and honestly, nobody around here could beat him. The guy was basically flexing for everyone to see, calling our boy a brat and saying he only got his position because his family was rich. Yeah, good luck, buddy. Dale didn't even look bothered. He just pointed out that everyone seemed to be doubting him, probably because he was just a 10-year-old suddenly in charge of a real battle. But to be honest, our MC was doubting them right back, especially after seeing their so-called best knight show up reeking of booze. He said, if they really wanted to clear things up, they'd do it the old-fashioned way, with swords. Harbuck got fired up and accepted, acting like he was about to teach Dale a lesson. He went full drama mode, shouting his name and his honor as if this was going to impress anyone. Dale just looked at him like, is this guy for real? Anyway, out on the training field, Harbuck started talking big about Dale's sword. He said he'd heard all these stories about it being peculiar, but you could tell he didn't believe the hype at all. Looking at how confident that raid hair was, our boy was thinking, what's the other guy hiding? And then, boom, Harbuck charged in, swinging his sword with all his strength. But Dale blocked that attack like it was nothing, even with his sword glowing dark purple and all mysterious. Harbuck's eyes almost popped out of his head. Looking at that knight, his sword didn't even have a proper aura. Well, it makes sense, because only the best knights could use it. But still, he figured if that man was going all out, he should do the same. That's when Dale went full monster mode. He used his shadow and summoned a pillar of shadow, made a magic shield just to flex, and then summoned these creepy shadow tentacles that whipped all around Harbuck. The poor guy was getting smacked from every direction, and he started yelling, asking what the hell was happening. Dale just stood there with his hand out, controlling the show like a boss. Our protagonist was not impressed at all. He thought Harbuck's skills were just average. maybe even below that. After a bit of shadow magic beatdown, Harbuck was tossed to the ground, groaning in defeat. The Baron ran over to check on his knight, practically screaming his name. Dale just stood there, looking bored. He couldn't believe this was supposed to be their elite. The Baron started freaking out, yelling at Dale for knocking out their best knight right before a big battle, as if it was Dale's fault his men sucked. But our MC didn't care. He told Greenbelt straight up, if this was really the best they had, his forces were just dead weight in an actual fight. He wanted to know if the Baron planned to just relax while the Saxon family did all the work. The Baron was stunned, and even Harbuck looked embarrassed. Then Dale laid it out. How Saxon would always protect their allies. But that didn't mean the Greenbelt guys could just slack off and ignore their own duties. So, until the real battle started, Dale's knights would basically take charge. The whole army of knights was watching this go down. Dale pointed his sword at Harbuck and the Baron and told them to make a choice. Either follow him or get stomped out. Simple as that. They didn't even hesitate. Both of them dropped to their knees, and then the rest of the knights all did the same, swearing loyalty. That must have felt good for our MC. Later that night, over at the Saxon Manor, life was way more chill. In their fancy bedroom, Duchess Elena was lying in bed while Duke Alan sat next to her, stroking her hair all gentle. He told her not to worry, saying Dale had way more inside him than they could ever imagine. Alan said that when Dale grew up, he'd see things even Alan himself couldn't dream of. The Duke was basically glowing with pride, saying one day his son would be the ruler of this whole world. That's one confident dad. But meanwhile, our MC was not feeling the love. In his room, he sat on his bed, holding his head, looking super frustrated. He thought there was no hope. He realized he'd been acting like a frog in a well, thinking he was strong, but only because the world outside was so pathetic. He thought most of the people out there were just useless. In his mind, Brandenburg's face showed up, all smug and evil. Dale knew that old Fox was only messing around in this territory because he already knew how weak everyone else really was. But hey, he had his own plans brewing, and he wasn't going to let fucker like Brandenburg get away with it. The next morning, things got wild. Out on the castle grounds, Harbuck and all the other Greenbelt knights were suffering. They were pulling this massive boulder with ropes, sweating like crazy and about to pass out. Harbuck begged for mercy, saying he couldn't take any more. But Dale wasn't having it. He was chilling under a red parasol on a fancy chair, watching the show with zero pity. Sir Bale, one of Saxon's real knights, stood by his side, looking ready to step in if things got worse. Dale yelled at Harbuck to stop whining and told him he hadn't even done anything hard yet. Then he ordered Sir Bale to teach the Greenbelt Knights everything they needed to survive, starting with stamina, because right now, none of them were even qualified to be called Knights of the North. And also, send someone to Baron Parker's territory and tell him they wish to propose negotiations. But of course, he is not a pushover. He doesn't intend to accept a stupid peace term. Also, he will go somewhere. There's someone he wants to see before the battle begins.